The Zoom really
If
doesn't
they
pick
can
it up well.
speak from here and be heard from the front row,
Record on this.
what are you thinking?
Well, I'm just saying, these guys sit in the front row like this and stay far back, and you gotta move these chairs out of the way of everything, so I think maybe we should move these chairs out of the way and just let the front row be the.
I think that would probably particularly qualify.
Okay, we're on the record.
Trying to.
We're on.
We're rearranging chairs, I'm sorry. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order for the December 30th, 2020 Rio Grande County Commissioners meeting. Suzanne, would you honor us with the prayer and pledge of
Do you want
allegiance?
to? Oh, I'm sorry. Father, we come to you today. We thank you for the opportunity to be here. We pray that you'll be with us as we make the decisions that need to be made today. We pray that you'll fill the room with your presence, that there would be no room for evil or evil intent. We pray that you'll watch over us, the visitors, the residents, and the employees of the county, that you'll bless us in all ways. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Glover,
Here.
Commissioner Noster,
Present.
Commissioner Bobble.
Present.
Okay, adoption of the agenda. You ready?
I would like to clarify an item that's on the agenda under general business and administrative items, item I, the draft IGA for State Homeland Security Program, to also include procedures for the Homeland Security boards.
Okay. That's item I.
I.
Right.
Mhm.
Any discussion on that? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, time for public comment. Members of the public, if I don't see any public, everybody here is county. But if anybody has any comments or things they'd like to bring up, you have 3 minutes to present your view on county matters. No action will be taken at this meeting. I don't know if we have any public on, we're not.
We do not, let's see, we've got several citizens on by Zoom, but nobody has requested
Wait a
to
minute.
speak.
Judy.
Sorry. Oh, come on through.
On the ice.
Oh, no, and I need to do a long record for this. We'll have that by the next meeting.
Should we go back and ask Nancy the question?
I'm sorry, what?
Should we go back and ask Nancy the question about the procedure on adding items to the agenda?
Well, we will.
About the airport lease?
Okay, we can do that. While they're working on the technical side. Nancy, looks like you're trying to get your schedule worked out.
Oh,
Are you okay?
Huh?
Took a slip on the ice
You did?
to go back and
County or on this?
go home.
Oh, okay, it's not a workman's comp thing.
It wasn't nice.
Just
You're off the hook.
while we were getting set up there, we had a question. The airport hangar leases. Right now, the way we're handling it is the board has to approve each and every lease, even though there's procedure and policy in place.
Mhm.
And Suzanne was wanting to add that to the agenda today because we have an application before us, but it was not on the agenda because it got into it.
Okay.
And it came
And
in this morning.
the consensus, sense was we can't add things to the agenda so because the public doesn't know about it. And I'm not sure on an administrative thing like this, that it's necessarily public.
I don't think there would be public comment on that. It is an administrative thing. And I'm still looking at it, but I'm going to encourage you to turn it over to the admin unit and not have to approve it by the commissioners.
But for today, we had this before us, and if we can't deal with it today, we have to wait until our next meeting in January, which is either the 12th or the 13th.
I think you can do it today.
Okay,
That's my normal opinion.
so procedurally, do we need to go back and reapprove the agenda? Add that to the agenda and reapprove it,
I
or
would
just?
add it to the agenda and approve it today.
Okay, well,
I would move that we go back and re-evaluate the agenda and add the airport lease approval to the agenda.
okay, this application
Yes,
for a lease,
yes.
and where would we add the general business administrative items, item Okay.
Yes.
That's one of those things we need to get clearly nailed down on the airport. All right. So if there's no other public comment, other items here, we move to the consent agenda, which includes 5 items. I have a question, and typically in the past, we've approved the minutes in a separate section, right? We haven't done it on the consent agenda. Usually there's an approval of minutes line.
I have been putting them that way since I've been involved.
Have you, under consent? Okay.
You can pull any item off the consent that you would like.
Well, I don't have any comments on that. It was more of a question on that. So is there anybody have any issues with that on the consent? On the
I
minutes?
don't.
Okay. Jean? No, I'm good.
And on the minutes, there was one misspelling that I didn't, it was the name Coleman, doesn't
Yes.
have any.
I just caught that this morning, so.
All right.
it's-
And then one other item I have under item C, accounts payable report. The report that we received was by vendor. And the one we'll be approving is by department. I think the vendor report probably came from Bobby. Did this come from you, Debbie?
No, I came from Bobby too.
Okay.
Is that the report you normally approve?
Yeah, we normally do it by department. But I noticed since we changed over to the new bookkeeping system, that sometimes you get the report by vendor and sometimes by department.
What do you prefer?
Department,
Department is, yes. That's really how we monitor.
because a lot of times you don't know who what department that vendor is connected to.
Okay.
And if you don't know the codes for the department, then it's difficult.
Okay.
Okay. So are there any other comments on the consent agenda?
Make motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay,
Second?
a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we're down to actions as the Board of Health. Consider approval of 2 agreements for the All Clear Emergency Management Group, LLC. And Dr. Brancola, before we talk about that, what we have before us are 2 contracts for doing a couple of deliverables. Is that correct?
Yep, 2 of the comprehensive deliverables that are pending.
Okay, but we don't have a coordinator right now.
We don't.
And based on emails I saw from some of the emergency managers, it sounds like they're trying to replace the coordinator with All Clear.
So we had a vote yesterday. There was a vote that was sent out to the coalition to vote on the proposal that was presented by All Clear. The survey included an option of, should we go ahead with the proposal that was submitted by All Clear to be able to do all the projects and activities and also provide the deliverables that are required by the state? Or should we go ahead and get a coordinator? So that was a massive vote towards, because right now we do have a time constraint. There were deliverables that are due, let's say, yesterday, and there were some that were due tomorrow, and there were some that are due in March. But we know, even before the coordinator contract was terminated in November, there's been a lot of pending non-action, non-deliverables on the part of the coordinator. So we now have a kind of a double whammy. A lot of activities that were not done, a lot of projects that were not completed before she got terminated. And then now we were in the midst of looming deliverables. So based on that, we felt at this particular point in time, because of the time constraint, and we don't want to be in contempt, we need to go ahead with the RCLA. They've got a lot of experiences, they've got a lot of staff, they've got the capacity. So yesterday, a vote was made, and we felt, and it passed, that we should go with the RCLA for now.
Okay. You understand that that's a decision made by this board, and that there was no, we were not advised of this. We had no idea this was going on, and there was no RFP put out,
There was a proposal that was submitted,
not by us,
I mean, to me
right?
for
But
review, but then my understanding is that the steering committee, as within the bylaw, the coalition needs to vote and then present to you.
but we need to have, we can't, we're not in a position, I believe, today to take any action on any all clear things because they were not presented to us in a way that we can understand. And we're responsible for hiring a coordinator or setting up, I'll get to you in a minute, Jody. How that process works. It's not the steering committee's authority. We're the signatory on this.
So to help you out, John, just a little bit, and Dr. Redcoley will help you out a little bit. The two proposals that are in front of you today is not.
They're
for a
different from the
coordinator.
one of yesterday.
So what it is was to do two deliverables. One is the strategic plan, and there's something else off the top of my head, I don't remember. So that's what's in front of you guys today. Those are not RFP things. Those are to get two deliverables. The steering committee, because those are due to the state needed those, is the recommendation to do those. So your question is a little bit further down the road. And so what's in front of you is just to deal with those two deliverables. Then what Dr. Van Coley will be doing in the future, because the vote just occurred yesterday, the steering committee is recommending that we look at doing that with All Clear moving forward, which would then have to come in front of the Board of County Commissioners to ratify it or see what direction you guys would like to do with that. So
Okay.
it's two separate issues.
I understand the
That
two tabletops or whatever strategic plan. However, as I understand, when Cynthia left, our coordinator, one of the statements that was made was that deliverables weren't being met. And I believe the state, didn't they send an email saying they had
Yes,
been
I
met?
got an email that where the state had signed off on all of the deliverables to that date. And I know that in that meeting, which I believe was October, we were assured that the steering committee was going to complete all of those deliverables
So I'm not sure what. you
that
have
were
from the
due,
state.
what I'm talking about is the deliverables that were due in December. We were told that the steering committee was going to take those on and that those would be completed. They had meetings scheduled and they had all these plans on how to get those done. And if they're due today and tomorrow, this is a little on the late side that apparently they didn't get them done as they assured us.
I mean, with the reality of the fact that deliverables were not completed, I mean, I had to seek from the state an extension on the deliverables that were supposed to be done and completed by today. And they just like Jody has already said, there are two things right now. One is this decision that was made yesterday is a different thing down the road that I'm going to be presenting back to you. That okay, a vote was made, then we need to ratify that. But the one that I put in front of you was way back, even before I came on board. The infectious disease tabletop that was supposed to be completed, the 5-year strategic plan for the coalition. That was one thing that was passed down to me that All Clear was already, being talked with that they were going to be doing this. And we had a first meeting in terms of, setting the ball rolling because we know there were activities to be done. And if going by what you said, County Commissioner Botel, I am not of the opinion that the steering committee have the capacity to undertake these activities and be able to meet the deliverables. Between us and the state is saying Rio Grande as the fiscal agent, and they're also saying me, my own capacity, as undertaking the coordinator position with somebody from Alamosa. So there's a lot of stuff. People are kind of like, all right, there are deliveries to be done that were supposed to be done by the coordinator, but they were not done. The steering committee was now looking for ways to see how can we meet the demands of the deliverables at the state. So if they don't have the capacity to be able to do that, there are two things: hire a coordinator right away, or both to get a consultant that can also do it and meet the deadlines at the state. So these two that I present to you are already been discussed way back before I even came on board on how they could meet the deadlines. The one that was voted upon yesterday is a different thing entirely. So when you started with, they already voted, it is their decision. No, it's something that is down the line that I'm still going to have to present to you based on what the steering committee voted on yesterday.
You mentioned something about Alamos and a coordinator. I didn't quite understand.
Not
what
that
you're
I was
saying.
not coordinator, but there's a name. I just saw the name from the state. Myself and what is the name? The name just escaped my mind, but the email is slv at alamosa.org or something like that.
I would like clarification on that.
Okay.
Because in the past, we haven't been that involved as commissioners in what happened with the Healthcare Coalition. And there was a real lack of communication from the Public Health Department and the coordinator to this board. And so when this started to unravel and we were getting complaints that the deliverables weren't being met, and talking to the coordinator, and I haven't read all the emails, her assertion was that she presented this to the steering committee, and it was the steering committee's responsibility to see if the deliverables were done. Now, whether she was speaking accurately or not, I don't know, but I never got clarification on exactly how this organization is supposed to work and what the role of the steering committee is. And there's an executive board.
There's an executive steering committee, and probably Dr. Van Coley, what would be helpful for the Board of County Commissioners is to get them a copy of the bylaws so they can see
Which I'm also asking for kind of a review.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a while, and languages there that I wanted to feel comfortable to be able to manage being the fiscal agent for the grant. So there's so, I mean, let me just bring all back down, because there are just so many things about the HCC that should be concerning to us as the fiscal agent. What is our authority? What is our role? What is the fiscal responsibility that we as fiscal agents are entitled to? I've been fighting on the side of making sure that we get our 10% to the county. That's number one. Two, I'm also, when the state wants to talk about deliverables, it's me that they come to. It's me that they'll be asking, when are you going to get it delivered? When are you giving us this and that? So I've been trying to be very active to know what is the role of the HCC steering committee, the role of the coalition, and where does it fit in with working with the county commissioners. So you can imagine that is a struggle every day. And Jody has been very helpful in trying to help, mitigate any challenges that have been coming from there. But gradually I've been able to, ensure that 10% that is due to the county comes to the county. And that took a lot of fight, don't you think?
He did. He advocated a lot on your behalf to get it, even though a decision had been made prior not to give the 10% to the county.
Who made this is the kind of questions we have. I mean, there's 1,000 of them out there.
I think maybe, John, just in light of your time and your agenda and stuff, because there is a lot of questions, and I think your questions are valid. I think Dr. Van Coley has them the same, and I was just piecemealing it, so I don't have all the answers. But I think maybe it'd be really good to get the bylaws, get Dr. Van Coley, and get you guys as a board of commissioners, and we have a joint meeting to sort out whose roles and responsibilities are in all of this.
They voted not to give 10%. I had to fight that back, and I had to go to the state, and the state said, yes, you can put in your 10%. Then we had to go back. So it took a while to get that done. And I said, subsequently, anything that is due to the fiscal agent, meaning us, should be given to us. And two, where are the information being stored? The information is not even being stored within the fiscal agent. It's not even being stored and domiciled with us. It's stored in another county. So I've been also asking.
The information is stored in another county?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on a Google Drive somewhere. It's not here.
So if the state is asking stuff, I have to then be asking, Where can I access this? Where is that? Then I get a link to that place. And some decisions were made way beyond before I came that region-wide information should be stored somewhere. So that's another fight that I kind of like the battle that I'm also fighting, that the information that will make my work easier and be productive and to also have a handle to be able to present to you guys should reside with the county that is the fiscal agent. They might have a backup, that's fine, but it should reside. So right now, when state asks for stuff, I'll be looking into the G drive. If it's not there, I start asking, who has it? Who has that?
Mhm.
So, like I said earlier on, there's just so many pieces of the HCC. By the way, for the public, HCC is the SLV Healthcare Coalition. It is a partner of partnership and collaboration among healthcare settings, public health and medical environments to make sure that we are prepared for any emergencies, be it medical, environmental, in terms of getting prepared, having a response ready, and also be able to recover from the emergency. But if we are the fiscal agent, I keep coming down to what is our role, what is entitled to the RGC, what is the benefit to the county itself, and we'll make the decision. What is the authority? Where the authority lies? And I've been calling to question as far where is the bylaw? I'm reading the bylaw. There's a booklet. There are some things that I wanted to make some changes. So, but in the interim, when you look at the long time work that needed to be done to get stability, but in the meantime, the state is not going to wait for us on what has been agreed upon, being the fiscal agent, the deliverables. So back and forth. Judy can attest to this. I've been the one pushing to say, well, let us make a decision as to, are we going with all clear? Are there other alternatives out there? I want to ask, are there other companies out there that could do similar work? Everyone says they don't know. Because the problem with getting into in one company is the autonomy, and they own the business, they own the whole, whatever. But in the meantime, we need to be able to provide the deliverables. And that's what I'm totally up for. Let's get these two that's already been talked about. Let's get it signed. Then I will, the votes that was voted on, the issue that was voted on yesterday, I'll get a proposal to you guys to ratify that or otherwise. But this one needs to decide.
Well, we always have issues when we feel like we're backed into a corner and we have to make a decision without having a chance to understand why we're here. So we wouldn't have known that we had a deadline on these deliverables. It wasn't being met. But it's not the only grant in the public health department that's had this problem. This Communities of Care grant, that's why Juan is here now. The same sort of thing was happening there, where there wasn't transparency. And if the deliverables weren't met, either they wouldn't reimburse us, or if they reimbursed us, the county would have to remand the money. So it sits here.
So,
And what we haven't had is good, clear communication from the various entities, whether it's the healthcare coalition, or if that has to come through the public health director, fine. But we weren't getting that information, and we were finding out things. For instance, 2 years ago, we found out that stipends were paid inappropriately. We found out they were going to try to do it again in 2020. We got ahead of it, which brings me to another question on healthcare coalition. As I understand, we had $45,000 that they allowed us to reallocate for something. We were going to have to deobligate it. What happened to the 45,000?
so
And before you answer that, and then there were 2 more grants that came through. We have gotten no information on that here, other than maybe the money came through or it didn't, but we don't know what's happening.
you want me to go? You want to go with that?
It doesn't matter, whatever.
Yeah. All right, I'll go ahead, then you can then jump in afterwards.
Mhm.
There were 3 grants.
Mhm.
The old grants of fiscal year 19 to 20, which is the one for the 3,000 plus. That one, I'm sure you're fully aware as to that pays the stipend to the contractor, that also pays 10% to us. That did not get spent fully within the fiscal year 19. So there was an overage,
Fiscal year 20.
20, okay, fiscal year 20, of 45,000, quote unquote. It was 50,000 before, and then the county spent less than 5,000. So it remains 45,000 plus. Now, there was a request to the state as per how do we spend these extended funds. So I think before I came, there was a vote as per, yeah, let's reallocate this fund of 45,000 to buy more PPEs, COVID related stuff. Okay. But when they voted, before I came, when they voted, they did not vote the 10%. That was where the fight came. When I was looking at the numbers and I was looking at the budget, and I realized that, yes.
Excuse me, when you say when they voted,
When the
who
steering
are you?
committee,
The state
voted.
committee?
no, the steering committee.
steering committee.
RGCC.
Okay,
So I inherited 45,000. And I had a budget. And they said, oh, this is already voted on. And I look at it. There is no line that shows we are going to be doing the administrative and a lot of the fiscal agency work. There's no line.
But that was true for the whole grant.
No,
It wasn't?
No.
Did we get indirect on the whole grant?
10%, 13,000.
and so when you say you fought for that 10%, is that
Of
with
the
the
extended-
state? Or is that with the steering committee?
Both of them.
Because the steering committee is an advisory board, that they don't have the authority to make decisions that are
So
completely,
So
that they
this-
can't spend our money.
This is where
yes and
I start coming into what the bylaw says and the need for revision, and to know, is it an executive board? Is it the one that has the authority? Because I keep hearing the board, the steering committee got to vote, and that they voted. So where the word around, I had to fight with them to say, but I'm looking at this budget that you say you approved, the 45,000, and we are the fiscal agent. We are responsible to the state. There's no 10%. There was this misunderstanding before that, oh, Rio Grande already collected the 10% ahead of time. I said, no, let me check. Rio Grande, the grant itself, let me just educate us generally. The grant is based on reimbursement purposes. It is not encumbered prior to the grant. It is based on what you use.
So that money, the money that has to be reimbursed comes out of the county. We write the checks.
No, until you invoice, we've not invoiced for.
But
45,000.
we end up writing the checks. If you buy PPE or pay salaries, whatever, we write the check and then you request reimbursement for
To the
us.
invoice.
Right. So you have to have a county that has the fiscal capacity to front the money.
Yes.
Okay,
But what
that's
I was
one of the
trying to-
reasons we're the county doing it.
So what I was trying to say, in terms of like, we've only invoiced and got back to the extent of what was spent before the 45. So the 10% that was in the original grant was only given to the extent of when it stopped. But within the 45,000, we're entitled to the 10%. But they said, no, they already
Got that?
voted. So and I said, you know what? No. And I went to the state, and the state said, yes, you can put in your 10%. So we have to still go back. And I was told the steering committee still needed to vote on that, which they voted to give us 10%. So the question is, do I have to go through that whole process to make sure that what is legitimate to the RGC in terms of 10%, in terms of the fiscal administration costs and everything, going to be given to us? I don't think so. It should already be given. It should not be transparent.
So what happens? That would have left us with around $40,000 available to spend. Was that money spent?
not yet. So just to back up, so you put a little bit of holes, the reason, and Dr. Van Foley is correct, your 10%.
Can we close that door?
He doesn't have to ask the steering committee for that in the future. The reason it needed to be ratified is because decisions were made before Dr. Van Foley came on how to spend that 45,000. So it's twofold. John, you are absolutely correct. It is your Rio Grande County's money that is laid out to pay these reimbursements, but it's the steering committee's money to make the decisions on how they guide the board on how they would like to do it. The board as a fiscal has the right to basically say, no, we're not comfortable as a fiscal to.
This
let
board or that?
You guys as a board,
Okay.
but the decisions on how the money's spent is really at the hands of a steering committee to guide you guys how to do it. You can always veto it because you're the ones writing the checks. But ultimately, it's not up for the board of Rio Grande County to decide how to spend it. It's
I
the
understand,
steering
but what
committee
we've
to-
got trapped in before
Correct.
was checks were written based on either steering committee or administrator recommendations or actions.
The
And we
board
had
should
no
know ahead of
knowledge
time.
that those were not in compliance with the grant.
And the
That's
reason-
why we have a new public health director, quite frankly.
And the reason why you guys don't know anything ahead of time, because all this behind the scenes, and for Dr. Van Coley, believe me, I've been on all these emails, and there has been a lot of going back and forth and clearing this up and fixing this stuff. And he advocated greatly on your guys' behalf to get that extra 5,000. But the reason nothing's come before the board, it is sitting at the state right now. Because once that got done, we had to send a proposal to the state saying how we would like to spend that $40,000. Now amended with the portion for the indirect to Rio Grande, he doesn't have the information back from the state.
The state, you're still held at the state.
It's all held at the
What about
state.
the other two grants?
The 25,000, it's the same thing. They're waiting at the state to tell us, yes, what the steering committee is asking for is appropriate. And once they do, they will send those contracts and budget to Dr. Van Coley, and he will come in front of the board before those checks are cut to get your formal approval on that part of it.
How many
So-
grants are we talking about?
There's 4 total right now. There's the prior year 45,000. There's your current year contract of 140 some thousand. There's the 25,000 COVID funds that are sitting, and then there's the brand new 90 some $1,000 that nobody has done anything with.
What's that for?
John, I'd have to go look. It is a whole bunch of deliverables and a whole bunch of stuff. And that's where at this point in time, we're trying to get these other 3 taken care of before that 90 is looked at.
Well, have we
that's why the
received
board-
that money? Have we applied for it?
No, if you're just awarded it, nobody's actually
Yeah.
physically gotten any of the funds because they're all reimbursement. And so it will be after the money is spent that you guys will do exactly what you say. So that's where they're all at and why you guys don't have the information. And I totally appreciate because I know where we're at and how we got here, but some of those things are further down the road than where we're at. And this is eating a lot of time trying to fix a lot.
Well, I guess the reason I'm going down the road on some of these is whether or not we hire a coordinator.
Well, and right now, and Dr. Van Coley's been asking these questions a lot. Hiring the coordinator right now, and that was the vote yesterday. Right now, nobody has the time to even train a coordinator. Dr. Van Coley's office doesn't have capacity. I don't have the knowledge. There's nobody doing that. I mean, even the steering committee with the amount of deliverables, and the state is very willing to work with us. That's why they gave us extensions on these deliverables.
Yeah.
That's why all of this is, they want us to do it. But right now, All Clear has the capacity and the knowledge to do it. The steering committee's advice to the Board of Commissioners, and this will be not this meeting because it wasn't on the agenda, but to guide to probably hire a consultant temporarily to meet some of this till we get our feet under us and he has time to deal with it. And then at that point in time would be the discussion is, did we like a consultant or do we want to hire a coordinator? But to hire somebody, somebody's gonna have to train them. There's no way of just bringing them in and doing it. You can bring in All Clear and this would fix, it's like a piecemeal temporarily at this point in time.
Yeah, it's just a second that we do have a kind of like a laundry list of deliverables that are, within this last December, within March, within June. And when you look at it, I mean, bringing out a coordinator right now, well, is that not somebody that's already doing the work somewhere that is ready to just, get a feet wet right away? There's no time lag for learning. And 2, could we just patch it right now to get the immediate stuff done? And that is why we're going for.
You're going for these 2 grant, or these 2.
These 2
contracts.
grants were all kind of like
Contracts.
things that were inherited.
This is
around
fiscal
us.
year 2021 money,
This one was supposed to be due this December.
which is fiscal year 2021.
Yeah, going by our fiscal year here, yeah, it's supposed to be fiscal year 2021. So we got an extension till March because there was really no way
We got an extension on these 2.
on these 2 to complete the 2
which is a
project delivery,
tabletop and develop, what,
and a coalition strategic plan for 5 years.
shouldn't that have been done beginning?
Yeah, but you
That's
know,
why you don't have a coordinator anymore. Although she
yeah, we
said
don't have a
stuff was
coordinator anymore.
Done, it wasn't done, and when the steering committee realized how much work was to be done, they're like, there's no way that steering committee could write a.
I don't want to belabor this,
So-
and this is probably something we need to talk about in a work session, but it's before us today. We didn't bring it to you, you brought it to us. There's a lack of clarity on what the healthcare coalition does and how it interacts, and a lack of clarity may be on our part because we haven't been told. But we have a steering committee, and then we have an executive,
They're the same.
but there's like 3 people, executive committee and a steering committee. They have a coalition, which is,
So there's a coalition, Don, and the coalition is made up of like 80, 90, 100, there's hundreds of people on that coalition.
I understand that.
Then there's an executive committee / steering committee, which is the same body. There is
Okay, and how many
14,
are on the steering
I
committee?
think 14. off the top
Okay,
of
as
my
I
head.
understand, there was meetings of this executive committee several months ago without a quorum, and decisions were made and instructions given to the coordinator that that person felt they could not comply with because there had not been a quorum voting on this.
So I can tell you, I've only been part of it since July. I can tell you there's never been a vote or any decision made without a quorum. And I know they've made that. very
This was
known.
prior to July.
Yeah, so prior to July, I can't speak.
This,
to
this
that.
would have been May, June.
Yeah, I can't speak for
Okay.
that time period.
But that being the case, what's clear to me is it's not clear. We don't have a good description of what the goal is. And I have heard repeatedly that this particular HCC model was developed primarily for coastal cities where they have these kind of universal disasters like earthquakes and all, or not earthquakes, but hurricanes. And while the concept is good for these rural inland counties, it's not really tailored for our specific situations. And that's one of the complaints I've heard up channel on HCC out of the valley. And so we've never had it clearly explained to us exactly what the ultimate objective is. We understand the feel-good part of it. But then that takes you to who really should be on this committee. The steering committee, or first of all, the coalition. And then secondly, the steering committee. Should it be more loaded towards the medical side? We're dealing with pandemics, which isn't necessarily an emergency management issue. It's a healthcare issue. A lot of it has to do with hospital capacity, things of that nature, if I'm correctly, medical capacity. We're talking about, it's not child mortality, but there's something about one of the deliverables has to do with infants or,
Yeah.
okay.
Pediatrics.
Pediatrics, okay. Not an emergency manager's issue. And so how is our steering committee, what is it comprised of? Is it primarily medical? Is it primarily emergency management? Who is on that committee? And are we accomplishing our overall goal?
I think we can provide you with the current bylaws
Uh-huh.
for review. That's number one. Number two, we can also give you the updated steering committee membership list to show, to respond to your question as far who are on the membership. But one thing I also know is that the statute that created, the state statute that created the HCC says there should be co-chairs, and one of the co-chairs should be a hospital representative.
Right.
So there is that one that is statutorily in there. Then the others would then be based on the region. So we have 3 co-chairs right now. We have the one representing the hospitals. We have the one representing the east side and the west side of the valley. So, but
We're representing what component of the east or west side of the valley?
I mean, I'm just talking.
And am I correct that both of those, the one representing the east and the one representing the west, are both emergency managers?
That's what I wanted to say. So we have one statutorily for the hospital, then we have the other 2. But it then happens that the 2 that on the other side, as you said, county commissioner hotel is they are all EM guys.
Well, and that's as of today, the East co-chair is no longer, and he was not representing EMs. He was on there because of the ambulance, due to some personal issues, he cannot be part of the ambulance anymore. And so he is resigning and they have replaced a new ambulance member.
Who is that? Who's
It was
resigned?
Chris.
Chris?
Yeah, Chris resigned.
And who's taking the place?
I don't remember his name.
My understanding is that that person is coming in as a member, but I don't think that person is representing and being the co-chair immediately.
Right, it needs to be voted.
It has to be
before-
voted on.
Yeah, it needs to be voted on that part, but that will leave only one emergency manager on the steering committee. The rest are hospitals, medicals, there is Valleywide, there is the nursing homes, and the reason I'm on there is as an other agency. But it is all, and public health, there's 2-3 public health people on there, so it is very medically driven.
Okay, another concern that I have is this is a board that is created solely because it meets a standard within the grant, correct? Okay, as such, correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, that bylaws are not necessary or appropriate. And the concern I
Ooh,
have,
Gotcha.
the
I'm ready for
concern that I have is bylaws, a lot of times whenever they're rewritten or updated, it's done just by the membership of that committee, that it doesn't go through the fiscal agent who is ultimately responsible for the money at the end and ultimately responsible if that committee doesn't do their job, that it's the fiscal agent that's responsible. However, it's the membership of that committee that goes through and says, no, we want this in the bylaws, or we want this in the bylaws. And they're the ones that vote in the bylaws, which is highly inappropriate. And then they're the ones who end up voting themselves potentially a lot more power than what they should have. I think this is something we really need to look at.
So the bylaws are a requirement of the state, so they have to have that part. So it wasn't something the group decided, that part was a requirement, it's in one of their things I saw. As for, I really think, and especially with the amount of time and stuff, we need to get a work session, and it'd probably be good with Nancy and them. Ultimately, I think the board has to decide if you want to continue to take on that fiscal responsibility piece of it and that role of it. Because I think it gets very convoluted, and I have experience from when I was in the IOG and I got out of the IOG, because the IOG had a lot of decision-making, but we held all the responsibility. And
IOG,
yeah, it was the inter-operational government thing that I got, House Bill 1451, I got out of for this very reason, is because of the fact that the county gets the liability piece, but all these people are the decision-making thing. And it's really weird because like the Health Coalition is not a legal entity. Neither was the IOG, but yet as the fiscal, and I think this would just really maybe be a good work session thing to really let Nancy have some time to, you know, realize some of the stuff, the board to decide if you guys want to be a fiscal, and to sort out the roles of both the fiscal part and the steering committee part. Because I think this is where it gets really crazy. And then ultimately the Board of Commissioners will have to make decisions if you're willing to take that liability piece when others are making decisions.
Okay, I can give you a very quick answer as to the bylaws. Bylaws are not a governing document. They are a guideline. Sort of like a framework for the steering committee to pay attention to and for them to work with Robert's Rules of Orders. Essentially, that's all bylaws are. They are not a governing document. They are not an authorizing document, and that does not create an entity that's entitled to a vote on anything.
And so I think what needs to happen, and I don't know these answers, and I don't know if Dr. Van Coley's had time to, is when this funding was done and in these contractual agreements, where does the authority on the voting really lie? Does it lie with the fiscal or does it lie with the steering committee?
See,
And I think
It lies
Yeah,
with the fiscal agent.
That's exactly where my
Very
fight
good.
has been coming on as far. Everything then comes around. We are the one receiving the grant from the state. We are the one responsible to the state. We are the fiscal agent. And being the fiscal agent, you hold the authority. But every now and then when I try to pull that authority, it's like, oh, the steering committee got to vote on this. Steering committee got to vote on that. And I was like, No, we're the fiscal agent. But, I'm just coming in. I'm like, okay, what kind of battle should I start fighting? First of all, I got to fight for every fiscal responsibility and every money that's supposed to come to the county, supposed to come to the county. So when I'm saying a budget that does not even allocate anything, what that tells me, the money just goes in. We will have fronted the money. The county will have fronted the money, then we invoice the state, and then the money now comes back. We now just give it out to partners. Great. But somebody got to process those checks. Somebody got to work with the state on the invoicing. Somebody got within our administration. And I did not see any line on that. That was a red flag for me. And two, then I said, okay, decision-making process. Let me read the bylaws. Let me see what is going on. We need to revisit that. Because within the county, the ultimate decision maker are the county commissioners. And they have fiduciary responsibility to review every fund that is coming in, every grant that is coming in, and how they're being administered. If they don't have the information, it appears to me that you guys don't have, enough information on ground to be like, okay, yes, because once I bring a contract, it should have been easier. I just say, oh yeah, all clear. You have the reason, but when I get to be in front of you and there's so many questions, that tells me there's still a lot of problems to be cleared up. So part of the problem that I think the issues that are right here, right now, the governing system, the role of ACC steering committee, where is their role per se in the grant? Is it advisory? Even if they make a decision, we still have to bring it over here for ratification. What if there is no amicable agreement? And if they say yes and we say no, what happens to the programmatic side on my part? So, and that dichotomy will cause more problems. And that's why I was kind of like, what can I do programmatically as a fiscal agent to protect the role of the county? And at the same time, how do I communicate with you guys so that you feel comfortable with that? You can trust my judgment in working with them. I'm also part of them. Let me just put it that way. I'm also part of the steering committee. So in any process that we are getting into, in any decisions that we are making, I'm also a vote as a fiscal agent. But what I'm saying is that as a fiscal agent, it goes beyond just that my one vote. Because what if that my one single vote does not even count? So the bylaw was like, okay, if there's a clause in the bylaw that says the steering committee make a decision or they vote because it is required, they still have to present it to the county commissioners for presentation and ratification. So the process will be so clean and clear so that you won't be like put to the wall that sign this, I need it right now. I don't want that kind of situation. But I've inherited a lot of, I won't call them problems, but they are all part of the, non-communication, non-delineation of roles and responsibilities, and aberrations around the usurpation of authorities. So I agree with Jody. Maybe this is something not to belabor this. We can go into workshops, closed session, and discuss the nitty-gritty of this, because I won't talk with the members of the steering committee too. I think they also meant well for the county. They meant well for the valley. They really want to do the right thing, and I see it in them. But they too, from at least my own personal perception, they put a lot of trust in the previous coordinator. That, coordinator is doing everything. But then became apparent that she wasn't. There was no deliverable. So that also puts them into a bind. We got to perform, we got to do this. And there's no communication, information is not flowing well. That is, to me, where the problem is. And I'm trying to see how could I, leverage the fiscal agent's role to make sure that whatever is due to the county comes, to make sure that the authority, whoever is supposed to be making the authorities, they're supposed to be making the authorities. And at the same time, be the liaison with the state. We are not in contempt. Those are the three things that I wanted to make sure I get done. But there are obstacles anyway, so.
Well, we have two before us today, contracts, right?
Do you mind if I say a few words?
Go ahead.
I have a recommendation. I think I've heard it.
You're gonna have to speak loudly through your mask.
Okay, I'll take it off for a minute. I have a recommendation because I think I've heard enough to understand what's going on. And I have a question first. Do we have an IGA or some other agreement with this organization? So that is the problem.
So. just
So
you-
wait, just a minute though. And what I'm gonna recommend, because I think you could talk about this forever, because I agree with your concerns. Things are really murky. That we have a workshop and talk about an IGA and all those things that we need from this organization. I'm also gonna recommend that you approve his deliverable contract today, because as you know, my experience is pretty deep in federal grants, and we need to do that. We just need to do the compliance piece, but we do need to clear this up because it sounds way too murky for me.
And I do believe that both Mr. Dunn and I have reviewed these. You've submitted them for review,
Yes.
for legal review. We did a lot of redlining
I know.
and they're appropriate. So both Mr. Dunn and I had an opportunity to go through them during November and earlier December. So
So one of the things I also wanted to implement that I think I already told the county commissioners before is that any contract that shows up to your place must have been reviewed by the finance director, must have been reviewed by the legal department,
Right.
and must have also been reviewed and approved by me. And when I got these, I said the first thing, they said the HCC already voted. But I said, you know what? I need to see the contract and I need to be reviewed by the corporate counsel. When it was reviewed, there were a lot of red lines.
lots.
A lot of red lines. And this was out of what we found before, that the previous coordinator was not really performing because there was a flawed MOA that was in place. So we reviewed this and I got it back to the all clear. They accepted all the changes that were presented by
Right.
our corporate counsel. So what you're saying there has been reviewed by me, reviewed by the legal department, reviewed by finance department, and it's ready to go. What I want to make sure it's done is before anything comes to you, it has been vetted, and you have the initial of each person that reviewed it. So you wouldn't have any fear that something's gonna get amiss, I guess.
I guess my biggest concern is that this is the first we've heard of it, that we haven't heard anything about this. We've never heard that you were looking at this. We've never heard that, and everybody else seems to have heard about it. But we haven't heard that this was even something that you were looking at. And so to me, it
I was-
comes back
He
to,
told me about it. I'm gonna take a little of the pressure off of Dr. Van Cooler.
but it comes back to here, this is a big surprise. You don't know any of the background. You don't know anything else. In my mind, and even if you had that information, I didn't have that information. So I have a hard time voting on something because I read the contract and I had no idea what it was talking about because I hadn't heard anything about it. And so here I am walking in totally blind. And here again, it's kind of the thing about being backed into a corner. We're going to hand you this contract that you know nothing about, no reason, nothing about the reason we're doing this. And then we need it signed now. That's a problem for me.
Dr. Van Cooler, just Jody, you were starting to say
I was
something.
just gonna
I'm sorry,
follow
Janet.
what
Thank
Leslie's
you.
saying. An IGA would be great, except you can't do it because it's not a legal entity. And so there's nobody that could enter into an IGA with it. That's the weirdness of this. And so that's where we need to go back to the origination of these fundings, of whether, and I'm not sure if it's statute, a grant, I'm not sure. It's all in the public health world. And so I just had to piecemeal a little bit, but we need to do that research to see that piece of it and figure out how to make it clear, whether we come up with some, I don't know, this is Nancy's forte in a legal thing of how to make those roles and responsibilities more clear between the fiscal and that steering committee and go that route. But that's why it's not done. It's just because it's not.
So I'll tell you my problem with that. If they're not a real entity and we're giving them money,
They
we've
don't
got
get the
to.
money. They don't get the money. They're just an advisory board to the Board of County Commissioners. The actual entities that get the funding is like the hospitals, the clinics, any of that type of stuff. So they don't actually receive them.
But somehow, my point is that we need to clarify roles and responsibilities and how this works and how the money is allocated in writing with signatures from people, because right now it is a big foggy cloud.
This isn't our only foggy cloud. But what we're identifying here is a process. Dr. Bancola has made it very clear on the process from his end and what he requires. So it feels like a kind of ambush of this contract. I knew there was an all clear entity out there. I wasn't sure what it was we were asking them to do. Because I only participated in a couple of ACC calls, and when Dr. Bancola came on, I dropped out, and Jody was doing that stuff. And so I knew there was an all clear entity, and I heard talking of it, didn't know the specifics. 2 deliverables seemed fairly straightforward. Having them take over in a coordinating role is something we would have to really have a conversation about going forward. But I don't want to cut off the conversation here. I think we've heard what we need.
I'm going to say that I'm not comfortable approving any contracts until after a work session where we can hear more about it.
We have a deadline on the deliverables, right? That's our push.
Yeah, but they have to start work before they will be able to get to match the extended time that I requested that was approved by the state. It's not something that you just do in a day. It's a process that they have to complete. So that's why I'm asking that we could just approve that.
Just trying to stop the bleeding right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to put fire out. And in terms of communicating everything I'm doing with the county commissioners, I think we need to also decide as to how often do you want me to come and present on everything I'm doing. But I believe I need to do a lot of things behind the scene to make sure it's a process. Because if I bog you down with every nitty-gritty of things that I'm doing, and at the back of my mind too, I'm also thinking we have the board of health, and the chair of the board of health. I feel I need to all the information I've been sending to county commissioner Nofstar. So he is aware of what is going on, and every activities, every intervention that I'm putting in, he is aware of those. That may not have been getting to you.
I think
Don't you throw me under that.
I think probably a better procedure for you would be, because we act as a board, it's not a supervisor and subordinates. It's a board, it's a complete board. So I think it would be appropriate for you to send it to all 3 commissioners. And so everybody gets that information, and you're not relying on one person to disseminate that information to everybody else.
I think that is my bad, because
I think that's a much more appropriate.
Yeah, and I would take that up subsequently, that every communication will not just be limited to the chair of the board, but to all of you at the same time.
We've got so many components to this. Basically, we're trying to reconstruct the wreck and figure out what happened. Okay, we've taken good steps going forward. I was the point of contact. I didn't get the nitnoy details on say all clear something. We were dealing with communities of care. We were dealing with a lot of other things, and so I was getting very information, but not detailed information. Partly you didn't know all the information at the time.
Things
It was coming in
little by little, and I was like, I was in that reactive mode, which is not really good, but it's an emergency period. And for your information, the CTC also was a wreck. This one is even minor. CTC was a wreck, but I'm glad to let you know that we got a coordinator, and we all worked through day and night to get our deliverables done. And eventually, the state approved our report, which was hectic.
that buried the public health department trying to deal with that one grant and things that had not been done appropriately there.
Yeah.
But this problem started way back.
Yeah.
Dr. Bancola inherited it. Juan has inherited his part of it. And it happened right in the middle of COVID.
Right.
Okay, all this stuff happened. So we were juggling an awful lot of balls. All right. I think that personally, in my dealing with the public health department, we're developing procedures and processes that are gonna take care of so much of this and make it so much easier going forward. There's been a lot of coordination with our finance department, that never happened before. Okay, so there's been dialogue there.
I love Debbie. It's
And,
great.
and so we're coming up with processes and procedures to make this work. The other thing is, some of these programs out here, we only heard about tangentially. Okay, oh, by the way, we're doing this. You get a big pie chart on the wall, it's on the screen, a PowerPoint presentation that told us nothing. But it was pretty. But it didn't tell us anything. And now we're starting to find out. And okay, what is the community care program doing for us? That's important to us. What is the healthcare coalition going to do? How does it benefit Rio Grande County and the Valley? We're not just isolated. We can't say we're living in our own little box. And each one of these programs, because you have how many, like 11 grants?
Many,
Or at least that.
some of them are actually ending this December. So
Right, some of them are dropping off. But you've got a lot of programs down there, whether it's tobacco programs, things of that nature. And we've just, this board's been kind of like, okay, it's been taken care of in public health. Whenever it became apparent there was a problem down there and COVID, now all of a sudden there's a lot of focus on that. And we'll get through all of this. We have a March deadline for these two deliverables. I want to
Yes.
clarify that. And it takes time to meet those deliverables. We're talking 3 months. If we were to delay this decision until after a work session, that starts squeezing that window down.
that may also put us in, because the Hawk Plan has given us a PMP, project management plan,
Mhm.
of how this is going to be executed.
Mhm.
And we've had our first meeting to understand what the objectives are and all those kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So there is a work plan towards getting it done.
Mhm.
So if the message to them would be like, no, your contract was not, has not been signed,
Mhm.
then it sends a signal, it will strain the PMP
Mhm.
and it will put us in limbo as to, okay, when are we going to get a contract signed, or are we actually going to be continuing doing this? Then it put the pressure back to us as fiscal agent, back to the square one of, are we going to meet the deliverable?
And how long is it going to take them to complete those deliverables?
By end of February, everything should be done by then. Then we have a week for review, or to accept the quality of the work or not.
So basically what you're out to is you've got 3 months to get it done and you're bringing us the contract where you only have 3 months left. Is that right?
Yes,
And
I will
so-
have had only just
So,
tomorrow left, if not because of the extension.
But they
So-
started working on this a month or two ago with legal and reviews.
I got these, I want to say I got them about the 3rd of December.
Okay.
That was when I got it after reviewing it, and then also
And then,
reviewed with Debbie, and then the question from Debbie is where are we going to pay it from after reviewing. We know it's going to be coming from the RGCC subcontractor line, and I said, but the one I'm actually much more looking forward to was the legal review, which came up with a lot of loaded red marks. So there was a process. Everything is a process. All these processes, once we get into the streamline of it, it just normal process, everybody will know. And before we even start talking to or having the contractor start any work, if you go through that normal process, you guys will be informed, you'll be communicated with, you feel comfortable with whether or not to go with them. And we have always to have a backup for you. But right now, it's like you're in a bind because where's the
What he
backup?
was handed.
Yeah.
Can I make a
Yes, please.
recommendation? I would recommend that since we did review these, okay, and they went back to them and our changes, our suggestions were accepted, that these contracts be approved, that we establish a work session and create a memorandum of understanding between the county as fiscal agent, public health as managing it, and the health coalition,
Steering committee.
so that they understand they don't get to just willy-nilly do what they want to do, but that the actual vote for the payments has to come through the Board of Commissioners. And I think that we can draft an appropriate memorandum of understanding to help them
Mhm.
help them understand that
That will help me a
That
lot because since I've been in the
bylaws are
meeting,
just the guideline, but they need an actual approval and an authorizing body
Yeah.
to spend the monies. That
absolutely.
they get to make the suggestions on how to spend the monies, but they got to bring it up.
And the money we're allocating for these contracts, what has been spent one way or the other for these deliverables, regardless of who did it?
Yes, I mean, if assuming we have a contractor right now, let's say like the person that was there before, she was supposed to do that.
Okay, but she's not there, but that's why we have this money available,
Exactly.
is to do these types of things.
Yes, yes.
So it's not like we're robbing from one to do the
No,
other.
no, no.
No,
These are
it's already
designated for this.
designated
It's already
funds.
It's
designated.
designated.
These are
Okay.
things that are supposed to be done.
In that case, I would move that we approve these two contracts
Thank you.
as suggested by Nancy and draft a MOU in the future so we don't have this again. And so everyone will understand where they stand and what their authorities are. And that nothing further, no further contracts be done until there's an MOU in place. And I would also move that we have a work session.
So the three-part motion? How are we
Yeah,
doing?
whole bunch.
One is we're gonna approve the motion is to approve the contract as
Thank you.
presented. Okay, two is that we do have a work session. But the work session is gonna be like herding cats, because we're gonna be covering a lot of stuff.
Right.
Okay, but it'll give you a chance to sit here and talk to us, just, so you can tell us what you need. Then, I guess part of the motion is we don't approve any other contracts until we have an MOU in place. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
is there a fourth component to that?
I think that was it.
You got all that?
Second, I wanna make a comment too.
Yes,
after we're
please.
done.
I'm sorry. You've
No,
been
I
quiet over
I just want to say, there's a lot of times these things come down and you're gonna take the heat for it, and you had nothing to do with this. None of the people sitting in this room had anything to do.
Jody has been, okay, sorry. Jody
No,
has
but-
been really helping, but
Well, I just want to make this point clear so the public can get this. You guys are not responsible for what went wrong here. We know what went wrong. The part I'm upset about with us on our end is that we don't know enough about HCC to know what we need to do. So we are going to learn, and that workshop's going to teach us, and we're going to have representation on that. So we know where we're at from now on. That's my second and my gripe.
End your discussion.
And discussion.
Okay,
There's discussion, not gripe, wasn't it?
it worked.
first, I must thank you for,
Well, we got to vote. Don't think it's yet.
I used the bathroom, I'll be back.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the contracts, to set up a work session. No future contracts until we get this done, that we get an MOU.
Correct.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. There you go.
It's as simple as that.
And I wanted to mention that I think a way that we can
you,
end
Jean.
this lack of, sorry, I know my voice comes across softly anyway. A way that we can end this lack of communication is that we have formal department head reports once a month. We can stagger them between meetings. And then the departments will have a chance to update you on whatever they're doing or what their committees are doing. And you can hear this on an ongoing basis and be kept up to date.
And we have
Typically,
this-
we've done that,
Yeah.
but it depended upon the department head to give us a comprehensive report. And if we didn't know enough to ask, we didn't know what we didn't know to ask the questions, was part of the problem.
Well, that's an important thing to do.
That's what we're working on.
Another thing that
We'll work on that.
I have started down the road of, and I know Leslie's going to continue it a little more strongly, is to make sure that when you get an agenda item, you have that agenda cover memo that explains some of the history. To say, yes, it's been through legal review, it's been through financial review, all of those things that might help you know, you may be seeing it for the first time, but you can understand the activities that have led up to you getting to see it.
Exactly.
So we as staff are making that commitment to be a little more proactive in giving you that information.
For sure. We're in the public health section. You got what you wanted. Do you have anything else for us? I see Juan sitting there. There's a reason you're here, Juan.
I would just only, first of all, reiterate those 3 things that I promised the county commissioners that in my role as the director of the public health department, I'm here to work for the community and the county. And then with what I've been saying, and there are so many things around communication, so many things around usurpation of power and authority. And the process that we have currently needs to be really changed, modified. And I'm glad that Leslie is here. And from the email I got from her yesterday, it gladdens my mind so much that, we'll be working in the same wavelength. So first of all, I thank you for approving the contracts. This is like putting the fire away. And I can understand your frustration around not really knowing deeply about what's going on. But you should trust your staff. Trust us that we're going to be working behind the scene, fighting for the county. Once we can build that trust, whatever we present to you, know that we are all together in this. Thank you very much.
Well, we trust you, but we trusted people in the past. So we're in the trust but verify mode at this point.
It'll be a process.
It's a process.
And we, and quite frankly, we don't have, all of our department heads are not real excited about working under an administrator or being a team. So that's going to be a process, but I'm glad that 2 of them are sitting here right now that are glad.
So I have 2 contracts here for signature.
Yes.
Okay. See a signature page, but I see the
Is it
contract.
a little sticky?
Oh, there, that's sticky. Okay.
That's why they make stickies. Nice to meet you.
We'll do it together.
I'm sure we will.
It's fine. Why are you laughing?
He pulls out his wallet. I'm thinking, who's he paying off?
I just hope.
Is he gonna hand her?
Oh,
Yeah.
misperception.
Business cards only.
Just for the general public, just know that I just handed over to my business card, nothing else.
This was our first opportunity to meet.
Thank you. I've not met them, but they're great guys.
All right. Nothing else on action as Board of Health, so we'll move on to social services.
I think it's
Probably those need to have copies made
Yes,
for legal and
For everybody.
for everybody else.
Yeah, what I
And
do
don't
is
just
like
run into your
3
office.
legal, finance, and myself. Okay,
And
let me just leave it here then.
I would leave them with Leslie,
Just-
and then
Yeah,
she
there we
can, or Judy, and they can take care of getting the copies.
Whatever you do.
I think before it ever leaves the office, it needs to be
Let's follow the
scanned.
normal process. Before it leaves, after it's approved, then I get a signed copy.
right.
Thank you.
You have 2 things that we need to take action on. The
Yes.
payables are already taken care of.
I think so. I hope so. Yes.
They were in the consent
Yeah.
agenda. Okay. So, okay. You got to explain every acronym you use.
I will do my best and do that. So, and I will get some, when Leslie gets back, a couple of procedural things for her as well too. But while we're waiting on her, John, if you don't mind, I only have 2 items for you guys. And the 2 items are the 2 policies that I had sent ahead of time to you. I also had sent them to Ryan. Ryan had no corrections on them. These policies I did get from the state. And just so you guys have context, a month or so ago, I didn't meet with you in November, so it would have been October. I informed you we were under a management evaluation by the state. Per that management evaluation, the recommendation was 2 additional policies to our child care. That's what CCAP is, the
Okay.
Colorado Child Care Assistance Program. So I'm
a question. They were sent to Ryan because he's the social services attorney,
Correct,
as opposed to being sent to Nancy, who
Correct.
is our attorney.
Correct.
correct. So unless somebody wants
Is-
something different, if Nancy wants to see that stuff too, I can, but
No, we have built into my contract what we call a Chinese firewall, because I actually represent
yes.
clients on the other side of DSS. I
Yes.
don't handle any DSS business of any kind.
Okay,
So just for clarification
that's
for
good
the
for
board
clarification.
and staff, employment issues, anything that pertains to my department, Ryan will handle. Because of the conflict that Nancy has with that, doing other duties. They do a lot of different work in a lot of different arenas. So that is my thing. Anything from a legal that I will need, I will stay with Ryan and go that way.
Thank
Sound
you.
good? Thank you. Okay. So what I need from you guys, I don't know if you have any questions. They're pretty straightforward policies. The first one that I need adoption is the CCAP policy number 17. It's a separation of duties. And it was just a formality. I did have separation of duties up until I lost an employee. And so we did have to grant universal access. So I only have one employee at this time doing childcare, and the state did grant those. I do have all that, and that's what the policy reflects at this time.
And I read the policy and I didn't have any questions, and I would move that we approve it.
This is CCAP 17 we're referring
Correct.
to now. Okay. Got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next item is the second policy, which is a child support service policy. It's just how we will work with our child support in regards to people that are asking to be receive child care assistance, and basically that they get referred to child support to try and make sure they collect what they need on that end. So it's just a formal policy of what we actually do.
And here again, I will reiterate that you do send us these policies well ahead of time, so we have time to read them
Yep.
over. And if we have any questions, we can ask you about them, which I truly appreciate. And so I have read that. I have no questions, and I would move that we also approve the child support service policy.
Second.
A motion and a second. I have a question.
Yep.
I was reading through this and it says to ensure that all CCAP recipients are referred to and cooperate with child support enforcement unit unless one of the following situations exists, in that list 5 situation. Can you explain just briefly to me what the concept is there?
So basically, there's different things. If there's domestic violence, something that would put that family or children at risk by going and trying to collect that, that is not at discretion of the department. Those are in rules. And so it's just taking the rules and making it a policy out of it.
Okay. Like for instance, it consists of a 2-parent household where there are no absent parents for children any children in the home. What does that mean?
So basically, when you're an absent parent, you're not there.
Mhm, I
So
understand
basically,
that.
if you have the 2 parents, but yet they are not legally together, then we would be looking at those. It's just a case by case, John. And I honestly, I don't know one. I don't know, Nancy, and your things with child support, if you know a case specific of a legal instance of that. I don't know when she may have more legal knowledge to answer that for the board.
Well, I was trying to get the concept here
Yeah.
of what this program's trying to do and what it's trying to avoid and what it's trying to.
Basically, what these
prevent.
policies are for childcare, so it's to receive childcare assistance. But what with this policy is saying, hey, if we're going to give you state funds, federal funds to help you pay for childcare, we also want to make sure that you are going after the absentee parent. So trying to get the child support that would be due to that home as well, because that would be income that maybe could offset the assistance that would be going from this program. And so,
There are occasions where you have non-married couples
Yeah.
living under the same roof because it's too expensive to separate,
Right,
mhm.
but the other doesn't necessarily want to contribute their full amount.
right.
That's the scenario she's looking at.
Yeah. So that would be one of my employees that work in child support would be going in front of the courts, asking them to make sure they are contributing that support
Gotcha.
before
Okay.
people are on a government assistance. And so it's just taking rules and regulations and making a policy.
Okay. And we had a motion and a second on this. All in favor?
Aye.
And I don't want to belabor it. It's just,
No, no,
I
that's
read
fine.
this and I go,
No, ask
I'm not
away.
sure what
You
I'm.
know me, I say ask. I
obviously
don't want
I
in
was
that
gonna
other
say.
scenario. That was before. So if you guys don't know, please ask.
Okay, do you get these?
I do. I have to send them into the state. And they will also, just so you guys know, for formalities, all of the childcare policies are on the county website. So if you ever want to know, they are posted and uploaded on there. So that's where they're at.
And there again, I think we need copies of those policies in our office?
If you
Also-
guys want them, I've been keeping mine just in my department, but if you guys want those policies, we can, Judy and I can work on it.
We're talking about that
Yeah,
already.
yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem. And then just so procedural, you guys as a board kind of know this, but with Leslie being a little bit new, the packet that I just gave you, this is not stuff I send ahead of time. It has data and numbers that are client specific in there. Not, though there's not names in there, they're so small that the public could maybe figure out who it might pertain to. So this stuff does not get sent out to the public.
And
And
you're
stuff.
talking about your AP reports?
No, this is not AP reports. What this is that there's very different reports, so I can go through them. If you look in the front part of the
okay.
packet, the first thing that's in there is options for long-term care. So my single entry point, I provide monthly to you data and the number of clients that are in each of the different waivers that we have. It's just the different data that goes with that part. The next couple of reports that's in here, and you have 2 months worth because I did not meet with the board in November. Let's see, the next one, that's this one. This comes from our quality assurance, our fraud investigator. This is the collections that she's doing, just so the board kind of knows on how much. It's not a whole lot of money, but it's a little bit we get. This report here is a child support. So it tells you how much collections that we're making and how many cases that I have in on my child support unit to help justify the staff I have. Let's see. And you guys get these for every single month, so you can see any changes. This report that looks this way comes from April. This is the part of the finance report that comes through there. You will have 2 months in there. The first report under there shows the versus the state budget, because as you guys know, the state functions on a June 30th year end, and it also has the county year end because you guys end on a December. So we function basically with 3 different fiscal year ends over there because I have federal money too. But for you guys as a board, you have the county one up above and the state one below. And it shows if we're going to be overspent or not. It's a quick snapshot. This report here shows all the money that's coming into the county through DSS. And it tells you what programs that we got reimbursed in what funds. So that is all in there. And you can see month to month if anything looks weird or any questions. Let's get the next one. And this is just a report out of the state system to help back up that other stuff. So, and then the very, very last report, which I got 2 minutes from coming over here, is because the state system was not working yesterday and Greg was off, is your foster care report. This is the report that you guys really need to watch.
This is the one that could bite us, right?
This is the one that we are so overspent in, but thankfully, if you look for the month of November, because we're always a month behind, instead of paying out $72,000 like we did in October, we only spent out $64,000, and that is for our out-of-home placements. So Nancy gets the other side of telling us to put kids in placement, and we're telling her, no, we're not putting kids in placement. So that's a different side, but this keeps the board so you guys know every month of where the money is and how many kids that we have in out-of-home placements, that are in adoptions, subsidies, that type of stuff. So, but this stuff, like I said, the numbers are so
Not
small.
public
It's,
consumption.
this is not public information.
Can I ask something
Sure.
of you because of that?
Sure.
Could you mark all the papers that are confidential, not for public
I can.
distribution?
Absolutely.
Because this is the stuff that can get picked up
Sure.
off of someone's desk.
Sure.
Like your
Mhm.
financials, I think are public.
Yeah, the financial piece can be.
But I understand the statistics.
Sure. Yeah, and it's just data, so you guys aren't in the dark and you guys have backup to know what I'm telling you is actually legit. If you guys want it a different way, I'm always open to that kind of stuff, but that's where it goes with that part of it. And this is why the minutes are not over here. They're also in my office. So, but anything that you guys want to know. And then also procedurally, going back to your recommendation, I do normally meet with the board every month unless I really don't have something. Last month I didn't have anything, and with the holidays I didn't. But the last meeting of the month, first thing, is the ideal thing because of the way the state closes. It gives me the most up-to-date information for you guys. So it's usually the 4th Wednesday of the month or 5th, whatever it falls.
Last.
Yeah, and stuff. So if I could keep that, that would be very
So
helpful.
Jody, your method of getting that report to them is separate, by separate email, is that right?
So this report I just have always hand delivered. I mean, when
Yeah.
we were, when COVID first handled, they did ask electronically, but then they also wanted it paper.
Okay.
I can do it electronically. It's really
It
what.
doesn't matter as long as we know and
Yeah.
can protect its
Yeah.
confidentiality.
Yeah, so it's just that, but that's why we don't put it out ahead of time and why
Right,
I
that's
don't
why it's not
distribute.
in the public packet.
It just needs to be clearly marked
Sure,
because if
I
it
can
gets in
mark
the
it.
wrong hands, we.
Sure, yeah, no, that's fine. I have no problem
Thanks.
doing that. I can do that and that part of it, so.
Have a
That's-
stamp.
I've got something else for you.
Sure.
I have two documents to sign here, Department of Social Services.
That was.
One of them is CCAP 16.
Yes, because I had a typo when I emailed it.
So
out
this
to you
is a
guys.
disregard.
That's a disregard. These are.
And
it
then
was-
I've got a CPAP 18.
Correct,
which
because that
is-
was supposed to be 17 and I had a typo. I didn't resend it out to you when I caught that, when I was bringing it. to
Can I
Lindsay.
throw these away?
Yes, throw them away.
Okay.
And that's the other thing, just so you guys know, and it's your choice if you want to give them copies. I always bring them and always have it for them as well too.
So
To save paper if you guys want, or whatever you want to do, but I'll always have the documents.
if we're gonna save paper, they can quit sending me 135-page emails.
By email, not hard copy.
No, I ended up spending all the paper.
Well,
And
we can talk about that.
Yeah, okay.
And if
Anything else
there's,
for us, Joey?
I don't have
Do you have
anything.
anything for Joey?
The only other thing is I want to tell you guys, thank you. You have no idea how good Stan is. I have heat in my lobby and the first time in 12 years in that building. There's parts that I haven't had heat in 2 years in my building that have heat over there right now. So I'm just wanting to tell, and it cost me $60.
If
So-
Stan gets a raise, it comes out of your budget.
I can't do that. It doesn't fit my funding levels. So nope, I can't code it to that. But I just have to say thank you. It is a breath of fresh air and it is just very nice. And my employees are extremely happy to have heat over there again. So
Patting yourself on the back.
I'm not.
They're only happy in the wintertime.
yeah, I don't know why in 12 years everybody said, I mean, we literally were buying space heaters for that lobby. It's not warm, but it's not bad. But he has made, and it's so nice having your shovel or walk shoveled when you come to work and my staff is not having to do it. Yeah, it's made a world of difference.
It's
So,
made April lazy, hadn't it? I'm gonna come talk to her.
yeah, you can do that. Yeah. April was the one shoveling our walks for a while.
Wow.
So
Thank you,
needless to say.
Jody.
So I just wanted to tell you guys, thank you for that change.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. We're down to county official and department head reports. What do we have from the department head report?
Nothing that I know of unless there's some last minute informal things.
Armando.
Armando, you're here.
He's-
Did you
he's
have
on the
something you
agenda.
wanted to
He's
share?
on the
Oh,
He's on
okay.
the agenda for the
Further
Reed
on.
board extension. and-
Okay.
Okay, then if there are no reports, now we move into general business and there's two public hearings listed on here, but no times associated with them.
They were both advertised for 9 AM, so we're good to call them when you're ready.
Okay, so it's that time or after.
Yes,
Okay, we just can't start it before.
right.
Gotcha. Okay, then we're going to start on the supplemental budget. And the first thing is public hearing. Is there any comment from the Republic? The public.
I'm gonna make sure that nobody's asking on Zoom here. How do I get the little chat?
Who's the Rio Grande County LU?
Land
Legal?
use.
Huh?
Land use.
I believe
Land
that's
use.
Dixie. She'll be,
Okay.
she'll be in for her portion of the meeting later.
I see just, Rio Grande Sears on. Okay, so the supplemental budget,
All right.
are you ready for this?
Included in the supplemental budget in the general fund, we wanted to include the coronavirus relief funds, the $966,000. So we included that in the general fund. And some Homeland Security grant funds that were awarded after the adoption of the 2020 budget, which would have been the 2019 Homeland Security grant. And then also included in the general fund would be some release on the Tyler Technologies. Originally, it was budgeted to purchase it, and then you guys decided to lease it, and I wanted to be on the safe side, so I went ahead and included it in the supplemental budget. And Road and Bridge Fund, I included the purchase of the lease purchase buyout of the 3 Caterpillars. They wanted to enter into a new lease agreement, but they weren't able to because of the coronavirus impact to the heavy equipment industry. So I included that, and I think that it might not all come out of fund balance, but I went ahead and budgeted that way just to be on the safe side. And social services, I'll let Joey talk about that one.
Sure. So.
That was
we're
$2 million bucks.
It is. It's a huge increase. And the reason for the huge increase, John, is because earlier in the year, if you remember, I did inform the board that back in March the federal government decided to give everybody that was on food assistance the full amount of allotment instead of the amount they may have been eligible for, which drastically has almost doubled the amount that has been going out in food assistance. And that continued from March until December.
But that money comes back in.
It's 100% federal, but we have to budget for it, because if you don't budget for it, then we can be out of compliance with statute and it becomes a finding within the audit.
So we have an increase in the revenues and increase in the expenditures.
Correct, and there's no effect to the county at all for it.
I had a question in the general fund. Obviously, we did some things differently in terms of accounting and stuff in the administrative office. Did we have to do any adjustments there?
Well, what the guidelines are is if you're in balance within the fund, you're okay. And it doesn't appear that we're gonna be out of budget money at the end of the year. So I didn't include that. I only included the larger items that could potentially
Push
push
us
over
out.
budget.
Okay,
But within the department, I think most of them are gonna stay. The only one would be the administrative. But there was some extra money in the indirect services one that would probably take some
Offset.
of that.
well, in the general fund, the revenue side went up $1 million too. Everything went up on the revenue side.
And the expense went up the same.
And then the
amount.
expenses just offset.
Right.
So we basically balanced then.
We
In that regard?
balanced, but when you did the 20 budget, you budgeted to use fund balance. And you know that, we've talked about that, you've
Right.
always done that, you never actually go into fund balance. I think this year you may go in a little bit, maybe 200,000,
2020 or 2021?
2020, at the end of 2020.
At the end of 2020, we're all done. We may have gone into,
I think a little bit you'll dip into it, but it depends on how much sales tax, we collect that 2 months in arrears. So we'll kind of see where we're at.
see
with
where
that.
we are on that. But what about things like indirect and all that we weren't getting before?
I'm working on that, and I'm trying to get all the invoices from public health so I can see what indirect money they received.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna get all of that together, get the amounts, and then I'll bill it out to public health so they can reimburse the general fund.
Okay, so that'll offset that fund balance issue a
Right, and I
little bit.
think what I was looking at was around $35,000. That might be potential income to the general fund from them.
Okay. Is there any other questions or
But
discussion?
The airport fund is included also.
Right,
The Airport fund,
that one didn't.
they were budgeted to use fund balance, so they're still gonna use fund balance, but they did collect a little bit more in the gas fuel sales. So they purchased more than they budgeted for. So I went ahead and increased it based on the revenue that they produced for it.
Mhm.
And they also had a capital expenditure of $10,000 for the fence that was not included in the original budget.
Mhm.
So I included that so we would bring their expenses over budget.
But we'll get 5,000 of that.
I haven't
Reimbursed.
seen anything get signed, so I'm not, I hear there's a grant out there, but I have
Well,
not seen any.
tomorrow's the deadline on that.
So I don't know who's in charge of that grant that I've been
Tanya-
hearing about.
Tanya Owsley, DRG.
What grant is it?
The airport fence grant, the mini grant that you guys
Yeah.
have been talking about?
Mhm.
Is it a federal grant or a state grant?
It's a dollar grant, but it was a mini grant. And airport manager is supposed to be coordinating this with it, but our stuff has to be in, we've already spent the money. So we won't run into what we ran into last year where we hadn't spent it all. But we've got to be talking to DRG on the mini grant side.
And what we have to do is we have to make sure it's secure in 2020, because if there's nothing signed in 2020, that grant revenue is not really 2020's money. If they sign the contracts in 2021,
Now, that's off the table. We need to clarify that. Moving through the process.
My problem is I don't know anything about this.
I heard about it, but I
Yeah.
haven't seen any documents, and that's why
Just because it's a dole grant doesn't mean it's not a federal grant. It could be my
could be a
guess it's a
pass-through.
pass-through.
It might be, but
From
it's
the
state
AI
administered and it's called a mini grant. Yeah, it's a matching grant. So it's a 1-to-1 match. So the maximum of $5,000. And so.
Do you know what it was for?
Fence.
I bet you it's AIP money.
Who?
Airport improvement.
No, it's not. this could be for anything. Streetlights, okay, something like that. It could be anything.
Oh, okay, it's not just safety.
No,
Okay, so it's not AIP.
but
Okay.
you need to talk to Tanya Owsley at DRG on that. She'd be the one.
So being that I haven't seen anything, I budgeted to come out of unappropriate fund balance.
Okay.
So they're keep chipping away at that fund balance.
Okay, so if we get this, everything works okay, it'll
The
fall
only
back in.
expense we'll have on our end is that our matching funds, which is the $5,000.
Okay,
The Conservation Trust Fund, I went ahead and increased the budget for that money that was given to the San Luis Valley Sky High project.
Mhm.
That was not originally budgeted, and that was $150,000. So I included the expense in that fund, and the only source of funding would be the unappropriated fund balance.
but this shows 125,000.
And that's because they had already $25,000 in there for other projects that wasn't used. So I just used that money plus 125 to equal 150.
Okay. We didn't use the other 25.
No. And the public health was a nightmare.
No.
So there's a lot of money that we're supposed to be getting that we're not sure if we're getting. So I wanted to make sure that I indicated on this resolution somewhere that we might dip into fund balance to cover that shortfall.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking it might be 40,000. I'm hoping it'll be less. But I did include some of the grants, like all of the COVID grants that we got money for and we spent. We would include the Rural Frontier and then the deaf grant. So those are already included. The ELC grant is not in there because I understood from them that it wasn't being used till next year.
Next year, 2021. We have to really look at that and make sure.
I
Okay.
think they're using the deaf grant now, is what I understand. And that's another.
That's tobacco education,
No, that's a COVID grant, that PHEP.
THEP, PHEP. Okay, right. I thought you said step.
Yeah.
And we've got two steps.
Yeah, we have a step, so that, yeah. So I went ahead and included just the two, the Rural Frontier and the DEF, the deaf.
Mhm.
And then I indicated on here that they might use unappropriated fund balance of $40,000. And
Okay.
that was about it.
All right. Are there any other questions?
I don't have any.
Gene?
No, good.
I'd move that we approve the supplemental budget and
Second.
that we sign the resolution.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That wasn't that hard, was it?
You guys are done, since this is the first supplemental I've ever done, I need a copy of that resolution too, please.
You need a copy of this, okay.
First one in 12 years.
Next meeting.
We told him we'd work him in since we're past that portion of the agenda. We can work him in at your.
At our convenience?
Yes.
Okay, well, how about since Armando has been sitting here for the whole time?
Did you close that public hearing, just for the record?
No.
Did you close?
We
it?
didn't open or close it.
I heard you open it.
Okay. Then we'll close the public hearing. The next one is extension or termination, extension of, is that supposed to be or?
No, it's of.
Extension of termination?
Yes.
Okay, is the way that works is that was something that was voted on and it's set
Okay,
up by
we're
the
at 10
state.
years to it.
And so
Okay.
every 10 years,
Huh?
it's set to terminate. And if you don't
Okay.
extend it, then it doesn't
There's no
terminate.
more, so we gotta do it 2 days.
Or you're out of a
Please.
job? I mean, you're out of a job if we don't?
Because we have no weed district no more. He told us.
Yes.
Okay, so y'all are familiar with that now. That is not,
This would be opening a public hearing also.
yeah, I'm trying to find the documents here because they're not in that order. In front of me. Here we go. All right,
I don't have the documentation either.
I got the resolution.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, fine.
You're all good.
Well, I've lost some sleep, duties, I've been on duty all along.
Now, I've got a procedural question. Most of the resolutions, it has a clerk of the board signature block on it. This one does not.
lots of questions about the form of your resolutions. That just carried forward from the last time this was done. This is kind of a discussion.
Which we had a lot of digging to do.
We did. Let me kind of separate the two questions. Regarding the district itself, did you want to present background on why they're being asked to, or would you like me to?
We know why we're being
I
asked to
also
extend it.
have Nikita on
And
Zoom.
we've
You guys have more
unmuted
questions?
Nikita so she can speak. The district was formed back in the 1970 was its effective date. It exists every 10-year cycle and would terminate unless you choose to continue its existence.
So it sunsets on us.
It does.
Yes.
And the statute around that says the reason for continuing is if they still have work to do. And
Yes.
that's what I'm on to tell you more about.
If you'd have done your job well, we
I
wouldn't
think
have
I
any
did a
more.
quite good job this year.
We understand you have more weeds.
Yes, a lot of dirt being moved, a lot of new projects, great projects coming up. I'm making more friends than enemies.
Whoa.
So
good
that's-
sign.
I'm tying up, I got all the companies on my side now in the county. It's a house and we have it going, all the agronomists are on my side finally. We're working as one big team now.
Does that include County Road 29?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I heard there's a lot of sheep on there. That would be perfect.
Okay. Are there really any serious concerns about this? That we would
No,
not
it's
extend this?
Did you open the public meeting?
I got to open the public meeting, excuse me. I'm not used to this format. I'm gonna be real frank with you. It's like, I've got to read the fine print. Okay, we're going to open the public meeting. Is there any public on board that has any comment on the weed pest district and the extension thereof? Okay, there are no comments.
So I'd like to make the motion that we what?
What?
Did Nikita need?
No,
to make
just in
a
case I needed her. She's my backup.
comment? Didn't want to leave her out. She had
No.
something to say.
Nikita, you want to say something?
No, I think I'm good.
You're not that good. But that's...
Thank you.
I beg to differ.
Never mind.
So I'd like to make a motion, we go ahead and approve the extension of the weed pest district for 10 years.
And I would second that motion.
Thank you, guys.
And all in favor?
Oh, aye.
So we're going to settle on a format for resolutions.
We are. It's on my, I'm making a
It's on our
Nancy
list.
right here.
Okay, and then we're going to close the public
Will you
hearing
email me that, or like, I mean,
on-
it's a big-
the consideration of extending the termination of the Rio Grande County Pest Control District. Okay. Next item on the list, and this is not a public hearing matter, just general business. Consider implementation of county provided cell phones for commissioners. I know this was discussed. Is there any other conversation on this? There's a little briefing sheet that went with this about the cost to the county.
I think it's a good idea to have a separate county purposed phone rather than using your personal phone. The cost is fairly minimal and we are looking, as far as key employees also who need a cell phone, we're making sure they have that just to protect their personal phone.
So this is an action item.
It is. If you would like to do that, we will get those phones ready for you at your next meeting.
And that would be at a cost of $1,872 a year
That sounds
for the
about right.
commissioners.
Sounds about right.
$150 a month.
50, yeah,
156.
52 for each phone per month.
So you got to take responsibility for seeing to it that everybody that calls us has the right number now.
Actually, that's a really good point because we need to do a better job of letting the public know how to reach you through our website. I'll add that to my list.
Okay. All right, so this is an action item, up or down?
I'll visit with you on that, Judy, because I've got some ideas on that
Okay.
number thing.
For public
Yeah.
promotion. Okay,
No billboards.
you bet.
Okay. So, is anybody gonna move on this?
So moved.
Got a motion?
I guess I'll second
And you don't get one, do you?
it. Well, whatever. This is not something I have a big stake in, is all.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, the motion carries. Now, consideration of advisory board.
Didn't have a vote.
Huh?
How did it carry? You didn't have a vote.
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. All in
Aye.
favor? I thought aye and aye. Got a motion and a second. Okay. Did you vote yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion carries. Sorry. A consideration of advisory board appointment process. And there was a briefing sheet in here on that. If I can find it.
This is also a carryover from your prior meeting. You had a discussion about a need to appoint Board of Adjustments members. And I think Dixie is attending by Zoom, so we can get her input here. She has additional. Since that time, there was a time critical issue with an applicant that needed action from the Board of Adjustments. Since that time, Dixie tells me it's been resolved in other ways. So that piece of it isn't so critical. But I still wanted you to follow through with some determination of how you want to appoint your advisory board members, not just the Board of Adjustments, but all of them. And if you want to do any sort of recruiting process, do you want to advertise? In the past, it's kind of been identifying a person and asking them to serve, and then keeping them as long as they're willing to serve. What happens with that process is you lose the ability, number one, for citizens to participate if they want to participate. And number two, for you to pick who you have on that board in terms of diversity of opinions. So if you're looking for, you talked about your Board of Adjustments being the need for someone with a little bit of technical knowledge about development, land use, and building. And maybe you want to advertise with those qualities in mind, and then screen, do whatever process. If you're going to do an interview, or you're going to review their resumes, you can decide all that. But I think we need to nail it down a little bit so that we're doing something consistent across all of our advisory boards.
And I know at one time somebody had created an application form. I never really was fond of that form because it was too broad, and it's asking questions that to cover every possible volunteer or request to be on a board. And I think it would probably be more appropriate to have a specific form for that board, because you don't necessarily need somebody's resume if they want to be on some boards. You know what I mean, is you don't necessarily need
Thank you, Debbie.
all of that information regardless of what board you're on. That I think it would be appropriate to have maybe a form for each board or something like that. And I think it is appropriate to put it on the website and say, if you would be interested in,
We haven't signed that. It's not on the agenda.
if you would be interested in this particular board, then please contact that person. That way it would get it out where anybody who is interested could do it. But in the past, it hasn't been super successful. That a lot of people don't look at the website. Putting it in the newspaper gets to be very expensive, and you still don't get much response from that either. And so I think where we've had the best success is in identifying people who would have maybe those interests or that necessary information, and contacting them and say, we would like you to be on that board. And I think we've had so much better success with that method than we've had with anything else. That's my input. Kind of a combination of all of it.
It really is, and the reality is that is often how it plays out. government will cast a broad net and say anybody who's interested and get maybe little or no interest, and then you're still in the position of finding somebody to fill those seats. I think it's important to advertise that broadly because you do want your citizens to know that they can participate. They can come and be part of it. If they don't know, you're never going to get that participation. So I think that's still an important piece, even if there's very little interest. Whatever you decide to do as a process, I will ultimately write up for you as a policy.
And also, I want to add, Suzanne, I think you make a good point that we can do forums based on the board.
Sure.
So
Yes.
you get information directly about what you need for that board.
And that also brings me back to needing to find your, whatever your document was that created that board. And look and see, the Board of Adjustments is clear, that it says it can have 2 planning commission members, it can have up to 3 from the public. Some boards, as they're created by you, I know the airport board guiding document has some of that criteria in it. I need to look at that for every advisory board and then develop the forms around. If you want to be on the airport board, it helps to have an interest in aviation.
Right.
Not that you have to, but maybe it's a preference.
Well, on all of this, I would think we need a book that has all that information in it.
You do.
Huh?
You do.
We have a book?
No, you need one.
Okay.
The need is there.
Okay.
I think the information is probably out there. It's just not in one easy place to look and see, where are your guidelines for this advisory?
Well, to give you an example, the airport,
Right.
that did not exist in hard copy any place we could find it, and only because of by accident, happy
I found it
accident.
accidentally electronically.
Right,
Yeah.
and so those are,
Those are needs, but I think part of, we have a plan to deal with some of that also, but to get your desire on how you want your process to work.
so this is, you're asking that we approve the proposed concept, which is basically giving you guys guidance on what to do here, right?
And once it becomes written into a policy, you'll have a chance to adopt the actual details of the policy.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in moving forward, that's what I would do for you, is develop that policy.
So moved.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None. Okay,
So we still have a need for Board of Adjustments members, by the way.
that's not on the agenda.
But no, because we had not found a process to bring those potential applicants in. We will continue.
Okay, I've got a quick one right here. I'm gonna insert this. We have a void warrant request, but it was not on the agenda, not on the consent agenda.
That was part of your accounts payable action. It just needs a separate document for that.
Okay.
And did you want to invite is Steve still waiting? Your coroner.
We can in just a minute here. Is he, Steve up there? No.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
You can work him in at whatever point.
Okay, we can do that now because the next item will be, but we didn't vote, this wasn't in our package that was sent to us, or we weren't.
So the way you have been getting your accounts payable is that they are not going into your advance packet. There's multiple reasons for that. Part of it is a matter of timing. Bobby's wrapping that up right down to the last minute of your meeting. The other piece of that is it would take some scrutiny to remove any confidential data out of that, and that would take some staff time to do. So it is a public document. If we were to get an open records request for it, we would go through and make sure that everything in there was public. But a request for, is that a void check
It's a
request?
void.
That is an internal process requirement that just requires a separate signature because it's an unusual activity. So it is part of your accounts payable approval. Your approval action covered that.
However, this was not something that we received previously.
You don't receive any of them previously.
Yes, we do.
Oh, You received them by email?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And this was not
None
one
of that,
receipt.
none of that has been part of the public packet. And if you want it to be, we need to talk about that.
We're not saying that it should be part of the
I
public
understand that.
packet.
I understand that, but it is part of your action as a routine item.
Now, on this particular one, they're obviously public. Anybody want to come in and see
Sure.
these, they could see
Yeah.
them. And you could see that the line item was, so for instance, if we have a CVRF check
Right,
that was returned,
yes,
that would be on here.
yes,
Okay, and if there was a mistake on the payee, which is one of these,
okay.
but who approves it that I sign it?
So Bobby is requesting that of you in the same way that she's requesting you to sign the accounts payable checks. It's the same process.
You guys comfortable with that? It says approved by you.
Are you feeling the need to talk as a group about why you're voiding a check? Because you can certainly do that.
I personally don't have a need to. I mean, it's clear, you can read it if you haven't already.
Most void checks are correcting
Yeah, just a
clerical
bookkeeping thing, yeah.
mistakes. The one that you mentioned for the CVRF fund was a grant that was declined,
Mhm.
so the check is being.
Right. But since we have to sign it and it's approved, it says by the Board of Commissioners, so I want to make sure that we've followed the proper steps. I don't want to belabor this, but in the
No.
past, we've actually dealt with them as a separate
As
item.
a separate item.
Mhm.
So I think all of that is good conversation because in a perfect world, I would like all those accounts payable to be part of your packet. But it's not, it's difficult procedurally.
Well, and I guess my question is, yes, I realize the accounts payable is not part of the packet and I understand the reason. However, we do get that ahead of time, so we have chance to go through it. That if this is considered a part of the accounts payable, this should also be attached. And
If you want to wait until your next meeting so that you can say you've looked at that in advance, I don't see any problem with that.
I'm just saying that the procedure should be changed.
I
That today, I
agree.
don't have a problem with it, but in the future, that we shouldn't be asked to sign something that we haven't seen previously.
And I would add to that, seen previously in your packet.
Except there are items that don't need to be in the public packet. I think there can also be two separate packets or something.
Well, in any event, this letter was drafted December 17th, so it's 2 weeks old.
You know, the
That's-
complication for this particular one is if we need to capture this in this budget year for our banking records.
I'd like to make a motion, we just go ahead and sign that and be
Okay.
done with it since it's in place, we can
And I'll
adopt.
second it.
Okay, we got a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, good, okay, there. I didn't have a problem signing it, but
Sure,
just wanted to make
I
sure.
understand the question and
Okay.
but I do think it's worth a little more critical.
So you can add that to your list of things you're gonna work on.
This is only today,
Okay, I'm gonna get in here in a minute.
since I've been sitting here.
You have a whole half of that page empty.
I do, so far.
All right, Steve, I see you're up. The coroner is online.
Is he unmuted?
You want to talk to us about what?
Yes.
I'm always the last one called to the party.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to update you. The topper will get put on the 4th. So we finally got it in from Canada and it's going to go on the truck on the 4th. So we'll be good to go. One of the things I had a question of, and I didn't know who to ask or how to go about this. I've been approached by one of the adjacent counties to also maybe pick up doing their autopsy transports. So it would bring some revenue into the coroner's office, which is kind of unique. But I didn't know what I needed to do to try and get that put together.
Well, what's the price?
What's that?
How much are you gonna charge them?
I don't know. And I'm working on that too. I'm not sure. I think probably right now they pay about, probably $350 somewhere in there. So we could probably do similar. Something like that per trip.
And what does that come out to per mile?
That's a great question. I'm not sure.
What is it to Colorado Springs?
Is it
150?
divided by, let's say 350, 42 cents a mile?
40 cents a mile?
That's what it looks like.
Well, that doesn't hardly pay for your vehicle and your personnel.
Okay. See, yeah, that's what it looks like. 43 cents is what it looks like.
Do you think it's costing $3.50 now for transport for autopsies?
Yeah, I do. I do think that's correct. I know there is an entity here in the valley that charges $3.50 for transport to Springs.
Maybe we should have contracted with them instead of buying a truck.
There you go. There you go. Well, I just wanted to kind of run it by you. I don't know. It's something that's just been talked about. One of the commissioners contacted me and asked me about it. And I mean, I was open to it. I just don't know where to start on something like that.
Well, that's a minimum of a 5-hour round trip.
Yeah.
Okay. So your driver's going to be, I don't know how much you make an hour.
We're just doing $150 flat.
So I think you need to figure at least county rate for mileage plus wages for that person.
Okay.
Plus any other, and I don't know if there might be any other, if that person's going to be gone for lunch and we cover their meals or anything, any other expenses that we have.
Sure.
I think it needs to cover that. If you're going to come up with a flat rate for what we would charge, I think you need to assume that in 5 hours, that driver would need to eat one meal or.
Sure.
Depends on how fast he drives. Hey,
That's
Stephen, I think maybe what you ought to do is go together, sit down and put a pencil to it, write up what you think you get away with and meet the requirements Suzanne's asking for, and then just back to us and let us take a look at it at that time.
Well, and then
Okay, all right.
also any supplies that you might have to use. I don't know if you have to provide a body bag, or I don't know what supplies you might have to provide. That
Sure.
I think that needs to be in that cost, that we don't want to subsidize any other counties in any way.
Sure, you bet. And there shouldn't be anything additional other than the time on the road and the miles and that kind of stuff. There shouldn't be any bags or anything that would be necessary. The counties provide those on their own, so we shouldn't have to subsidize any of that.
And I would almost suggest that we would go with like figuring wise, that you should figure, because we have had some discussion of changing our county mileage reimbursement rate to match state or federal rates. And so I think it would be probably, if you're going to figure this in the negotiations, that I would probably figure it based on that rate. Would be my suggestion.
Okay, sure. Let me do some pen to paper and see what I can figure out, and then I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Generally in a pickup, something like that, which is what we're talking about, we're talking $2 a loaded mile.
Talking $4?
Two.
Okay.
Which would basically be $1 a mile, because you'd be loaded one direction.
That's usually how that's just a rough rule of thumb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Let me see what I can put together then, and I'll try and figure some things out and get it sent to you.
All right.
You have anything else for us, Steve?
No, sir. I think I'm in good shape. Just wanted to run
I've
that
got
by.
one for you.
Okay.
Dealing with COVID, and I know that you have to test some of the bodies and all. Where are you getting your equipment for that and testing kits?
The tests have come from Diane over at Public Health. I've gotten a pretty good number of them from her. And then emergency director has also gotten me a few. So I think I'm sitting on 5 or so tests right now. In the span of the last couple of months, I've only used 3. So, and then we run it through the hospital down in Alamosa, is where we've had the tests run and completed.
Okay, not at Rio Grande then.
No, not at Rio Grande. And I don't know, Diane set that up for me with SLV Health. And so we've run them down to Alamosa to the lab there to have them tested.
Are we being charged for those?
I've asked, I don't believe so, but I haven't seen a bill yet. I told them to bill me if I was, if there was one. I haven't seen one yet. So unless they're way behind on billing, I'm assuming they're doing it gratis for us.
Assuming.
Yeah. I asked the gentleman I dropped the test off to the second time if there was going to be a bill, and he didn't think so, but he said if there was, they just send it to the county or send it to me. And I haven't seen one yet.
Okay, it's not a budgeted item for a reason. If they get it to us after the first of the year for this year's activity, because I know some of those tests are over $100 a piece.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen one. I haven't seen a bill. And like I said, I guess we've only done 2 that were pertinent to my investigation to determine whether or not that was a part of, contributing factor to cause of death. But I haven't seen a bill, and Diane hasn't contacted me either with a bill from public health or anything.
And she probably wouldn't even see it, but I don't know.
You sure? I'm not sure on that.
Okay. All right. Enough. You have anything else for Steve?
I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You bet. Take care. All right. The next item on our list is the request. Need a decision regarding the previously presented funding request. You guys have seen those. I'm open to discussion. What do you think?
Regarding the Adams State College Cozy Grant, is historically what's happened is they have found people to donate the match, that it just has to be, it has to go through a county. And so we have never actually put any money.
They're not asking for that.
They're asking for money,
They're
right?
asking for money.
Well, I know, but historically, there have been businesses or something that have stepped up and provided the money. And I say that that's a fine way of doing it.
So you want to deal with each of these individually?
I think you need separate discussions on them because they may have separate merits, and their amounts have not really been fully defined, so you can define what amount, if any, you want to donate.
Well, the Cozy Grant, the first year we were approached on it, we didn't feel like we had the funds or the time from the time they presented it. So it was covered by a local bank, picked that up and sponsored it for us. The next year we didn't participate in it and nobody picked it up.
Yes. We had a different bank that did the second
The
year.
one,
It was, the first year it was one bank, and the second year it was a different bank. I can't
Okay.
remember which one it
So-
was, but yeah.
we have not put any money into this program
Historically, it's
whatsoever.
not
Right.
money.
Right.
Okay.
And for whatever
And
reason.
The reason
so-
I brought it back to you is they had asked for a commitment by the end of this year and funding by July. So I just wanted to follow up with communicating back to them by the end of the month.
So where are we?
So the other 2, the Youth Conservation Corps, that was a youth program that you heard about. They were looking for up to $1,400 for a contribution toward that. The SLB Housing Coalition study is a regional effort toward a tool that is probably going to be highly beneficial to the whole valley. And again, they were asking for a range of, I'm going from my memory here, but you've got it in writing, 300 to a few thousand.
500 to 3,000, yeah.
Okay. So totally your discretion, what you'd like to do with that, but I do feel like I need to give them a response since your budget's been finalized.
Did the Conservation Youth Corps, did they mention anything about COVID, what they're gonna do as far as their COVID requirements?
I don't.
I know there's a
I
lot
don't
that's
know that
restricted a
anything
lot
got
of that.
talked about.
That's a
That's a difficult one to do.
bit.
Plan.
And I haven't
COVID.
had
No, you
communication with
can't.
them since they were here at your
Yeah.
meeting about that.
I just meant if they were actually gonna go ahead and go through with planning for it, is what I was getting at.
Yeah,
So,
and I don't know that answer.
I don't know.
who knows?
I think it's a laudable program. I think the community benefits from it. The housing study probably needs to be, well, it's going to get done. Our participation in it just is showing a sign of some support. It's actually going to, I don't want to digress here and get into land use issues, but I got told by a member of Rio Grande Headwaters Land Trust the other day that Monty only has 2 directions to grow now because of conservation easements. And that kind of stuff, where you start talking about housing, particularly affordable housing, where's it going to go? We don't have any of that information right now. And it's one of those things this board's going to be faced with down the line. Because most of this housing issue has to be tied into services, water and sewer. So it throws you into the municipalities and annexation issues and things of that nature.
So what would be your recommendation?
Well, I don't know, we're already talking about spending fund balance this year.
You have, and now this is not 2020, this is for 2021.
We're talking about spending fund balance next year too.
And within your 2021 budget, in your miscellaneous community assistance line item, you have $2,500
Left.
That's all you
Total.
budgeted.
All we have.
That's all you budgeted.
So if we did 500 to them, we've shown support.
And I'm fine with that, because I thought at one time we had originally talked about that with them anyway.
She came in and gave a presentation, or she did it online, I can't remember. Yeah, she came up, did online, I believe. Mhm.
I think I could support 500
Okay.
with them,
And you're talking about the housing.
the Housing
Yes.
Coalition.
So is that a motion?
Moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 500.
And on Youth Corps, I'm a firm believer. I've seen that program work. I've had basketball kids that went through that program over the years coaching that it really benefited them a lot. So I'm in favor of doing something there. I don't know.
However, the amount that they were needing was, do I want to say 7,000? Is that the number that comes to mind? Is that,
They mentioned a broader amount for the total program. They were recommending 1,400 as a donation from us. But it is a recommendation, and I know
They'll take whatever we give them. But
however, if you give them an amount less than what is usable, then probably we won't gain any benefit from them.
I don't know that that's a fair statement necessarily.
Well, because they do projects.
Sure.
And where the projects are located are based off of what amount has been given in order to work in that area.
what did they do? They did something in Rio Grande County last year, didn't
I'm not terribly
The
familiar.
year
with
before they did a
they? Year
fence-
before, they showed us
I've
some pictures.
seen a fence, yeah. No, the fence was in Creed, wasn't it?
The year before they did the fence line around the Creed Cemetery and last year they redid Bob Ford's grave site and continued that fence line out. I don't know what they did down here. 'Cause
I'm not
I don't
sure.
either.
I think they
thought
got
I had a
canceled.
picture.
I think they pulled the
Right.
people out of it before.
But
they-
even if they don't, it's good for the kids. I don't know how many Rio Grande County kids are in the program, but. I don't know.
Well, if we gave them $1,400, that would be 600, we'd have $600 left for the rest of the year for other.
Right, but I might be able to
Contributions.
get them to go, come do the Rock Creek Cemetery since they're capable of handling cemeteries.
And
Or
they,
one of those
they may
cemeteries
be
around here.
looking for projects like that too, some that they can get in and out to, so. I know that's why I asked about the COVID thing, because I know they had to cancel some of their overnight stuff because of all that
Yeah.
stuff. So, I'll never argue any direction but in favor of anything for kids, so. I'll make the motion, we do the 1,400 for Conservation Youth Corps.
Got a motion
I'll second that.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we've handled those two. We haven't done
And
anything on the cozy.
your cozy was 0. Is that correct?
We didn't vote on it.
That's my suggestion, is that we allow them to find a contributor.
I think so on that too. I don't think giving them the $600 we had left in that line item, probably not gonna help do much of anything, so.
Okay, so that's the sense that 0 on that. Is that
Get
correct?
back in touch with those entities.
All right. So. Here we go. The San Luis Valley Emergency Coordination Group Memorandum of Agreement.
This was, Art had requested this, and is he online?
Unless he's
There's a
user one.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, well.
Okay, this is the same memorandum of agreement that we were asked to sign several months ago. And that Ryan suggested that we not sign it because of the,
They're not a legal entity.
they're
right?
not a legal entity and that there's a lot of legal questions behind it. But it was Ryan's suggestion that we not enter into this.
Well, this kind of hit me, it blindsided me because
I have not.
I know it was mentioned at one time at the San Luis Valley BOCC, but they couldn't give us a good explanation what they were actually going to do. And then there was quite a bit of conversation, email chatter early on during COVID, because the EMs felt that they were being misallocated or misdeployed in the COVID effort and not represented well at the regional level at COVID. But other than that, it kind of died, and we decided not to sign it based on the council. And now it surfaces again without anybody talking to us about it.
And that's one of the holes that continue to fall into the gaps. If we'd had our perfect world of the ability to ask Art to do a background memo for you, telling you
Mhm.
why, the background, everything else. But that's one piece that I have started to develop and hasn't fully gotten there yet.
Okay,
So
but
I have
anybody
no doubt
presenting
that-
something like this should
should
have
be-
enough sense to give us
Yes.
more
We're-
information.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's gonna be, some people are not as receptive as others to this, the new way of doing things. But we'll,
It can be a learning curve.
and we can move that along. Learning curve. I'm trying to do it without making enemies right away.
And it was
Right
hard
away.
with the holiday time.
Might as well do it and get it over with.
The timing with the holiday, they came in last minute and the packet went out late as it was, so.
This thing
I
has
let
to
that
be,
go.
this thing has to be a continuance of working factors. Everybody concerned, we can't just jump on somebody's Cheerio bowl and tip the thing over. We need to make sure we're all on the same page. I thought this was a dead thing.
I did too.
Right.
And I don't even know why
And
we're
so,
talking about it since the lawyer
At this
had
point,
looked at it.
I would move that we say we will not sign this document based on council, and that it be dead and that it not come back.
You never can just make a motion, can you? It's like-
Well, okay, that's my
So then it's
17-part statement.
That's right. And Nancy, you realize that since you're a council now, you're gonna get blamed for that, even though you didn't do this.
That's fine.
You can handle it?
I have broad shoulders.
Okay.
Good thing.
If there's information that would be helpful to you that you just don't know of yet, I would feel comfortable bringing that back to you.
But the motion was that it's dead and gone.
Well, I don't know if you want to make a forever action.
Well, as it stands right now, this is, it's controversial. It doesn't clearly define what the function is. We already have conflict at that level with different entities trying to vie for control. And the people pushing this are the same ones that took over our water event last year without our consent or knowledge. And it was a Rio Grande County, it wasn't even an emergency, it was an event. And all of a sudden, everybody in the valley was involved with the railroad washing out down here by off ranch without ever talking to us. And so we're sensitive to anything that they may be proposing that would put another layer out there that somehow interferes with our ability to do our job. How's that? So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Or do you want to modify?
I think
the
he's
motion?
second.
Yeah, I threw all the seconds out there I had.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. You haven't heard all these stories, have you?
I've heard partial stories. I have not heard the whole story.
Well, if you want the truth, you have to come talk to me.
I know, I'm gonna make a point.
We discussed that particular one. I do remember that.
Okay.
Well, that was the problem. That's the problem with everything that comes out of that.
Uh-huh.
Everything we have in front of us today that we've had to have the long discussion
Right.
about is because of the same body,
Yes.
the same body. Yeah.
Funny about that, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's amazing.
So I have this that was not approved.
Okay.
Do I write no on it?
Yes.
You can do
In
whatever
big
you
letters
like
over
to
the
that,
top.
because I will contact Art and tell him it was not approved.
You
So
don't have
that piece of paper doesn't really.
you
It's
don't
gonna
have to
go.
put it-
This is
you're not
symbolic,
signing it,
okay?
it's nothing.
It just makes you feel good.
Big red no.
Yes.
Okay, feel free.
Venting is healthy.
Feel free.
Okay, sorry.
I had a couple of them in there.
All right. Discuss and direct staff regarding upcoming annual resolutions and appointments.
So this was my attempt to be proactive so that come your transition meeting, you are ready to roll with some decisions. These are the resolutions in your packet are drafts at this point. They are my best stab at figuring out when you want your meeting dates, what holidays you want, but it's all up to you. So give me input. I've already got one change to make. Jody pointed out that it should be the Department of Social Services, not the Department of Health and Human Services. I got a nice education around that, and I'm still not sure I know the answer. The bottom line is that's who we are, and we should state it correctly as Department of Social Services.
Yes.
So I will fix that. You'll see on my cover memo, all of my rationale with all the changes that I've made from what you've done in the past. So I'll field questions over that.
So I'm trying to
And
work my way down to those stuff.
really, the big decision on that batch is your liaison appointments.
The committee appointments?
Because you had a whole page of appointments there that were what you did last time, and they're going to be different, obviously, because you've got a different person involved as a commissioner, and you may want to spread them out differently. So you don't have to decide that today. What I'd like to do is though, get enough feedback from you that I can present you with a final draft at your next meeting.
Although there are those decisions that can't be made until that meeting.
And that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, like the chair, vice chair,
Right,
and all those
right,
appointments you
exactly.
talked about.
And the appointments for sure.
And some of those appointments may necessarily carry forward because of that reason. But if you look at your routine things like your holidays, your meeting dates, your postings was an interesting one because I noticed that you had hung on to the very end of hard copy posting after the law had changed.
The law has not changed though.
We still have to do hard copy.
No.
Yes, we do.
no.
That's why,
It
that
was
was
vetoed
the
by the
newspaper
governor.
lobby.
No, no, it was not.
I would double check with CTSI because the way I recalled that happening is it was vetoed by the governor. It was approved by the legislature, but it was vetoed by the governor.
Well, we could find out
It's
easy
been
enough.
in place since 2018. So the requirement, they were trying to softly get government toward electronic postings. You're thinking of the newspaper publication.
Yeah,
That's what you're thinking
Okay,
of.
yes,
This is posting, meeting posting.
okay.
So in the past, most places did hard copy because that was the world we lived in. They put it on the front door like we do here. As electronic communication evolved, citizens had an expectation of seeing it electronically. Most governments were doing both because it was convenient. It's what their citizens expected. And now the law has transitioned to where it is your electronic posting is your official copy. I put language in that resolution saying we'll do it in hard copy as a courtesy because we still want to do that.
Is the reason that we have continued to do it as hard copy out in front of the courthouse is because if the internet is down, that means you can't have a meeting.
And there's language in the law. No, the law says you can, in exigent circumstances, post in hard copy, and that's in statute, and it's reflected in.
I mean, here's the issue we have. They make those laws like that up there without realizing what we're living with in rural Colorado.
Sure.
And at the same time they're talking this, another committee's meeting to say we've got to get broadband to the rural areas. Well, that hasn't happened, and I'm an example of that. Okay, I have it intermittently. I cannot rely on the internet at all. And I'm not alone. You know, when you move out, when you get away from Cielo's hard bars, which a lot of us are, it's really intermittent. And I don't think that they could make a credible argument that that has to be the legal posting because if people are relying on it, it's not available.
And that's the reason I would continue with the hard copy in addition, just from a practical perspective. I wouldn't say let's not post in hard copy, and your resolution reflects both. But we have to, by law, make our posting an electronic format by July 1st. You could drag your feet until July 1st and then redo that resolution if you want to, but I don't see a reason for that.
Restate that, please. Is by July 1st, we have to have our official posting be electronic, that you can't have that as the backup. That you can't have the hard copy be your official and then the electronic be as a backup. It has to be, the electronic has to be your official.
Do we have that statute?
I do, and I signed it in the resolution. It's 24/6/402. I should remember the end of it.
And I want to emphasize, we're committed to have the hard copy.
In addition.
Yeah.
Yes, we
and
are.
I would like to not only see it there, but also in libraries and post offices. I think those are really good places to post.
Yeah, it's the logistics of getting them there.
It is,
Yeah.
it is.
Maybe we can send them home with employees that are going there anyway.
I don't know, because you got South Fork Center,
Yeah.
Monte Vista, Del Norte.
And each town would have a post office and each town would have a library. And I think that would be, especially if you were down to the 24 hours, that it may be
Which we
difficult to get
frequently
them.
are.
And sometimes with libraries, I know I've done this in the past, if you send them a digital copy, they'll run it off and post it for you. I mean, I'm not saying that it'll necessarily work out, but we would like to do that.
And we can do anything more
sense.
than is required. We can
Yeah.
always do more than is required.
Right.
But we want to comply with the law is the bottom line. And we're a little behind the curve in getting there. So we're gonna get there this year.
Requires transitioning from physical hard copy posting to electronic posting.
Well, the lawyer down at the end of the table can define to me to the greatest extent possible, which is the language in that paragraph. It says no later than, but what if it's not possible?
But let me
Well,
step back.
there's
It
no,
is
there's no
possible.
reason why the
It's
the
already
county
being
can't
done.
post it electronically. I mean, we have that
It's already
capability.
being
Right.
done.
The problem is whether or not you want to extend a courtesy to the public that doesn't have the access. That's the issue. For rural communities, that's the issue,
Yeah.
is extending that courtesy.
But
Because
why,
Denver passes all kinds of stuff that just is totally unrealistic.
Mhm.
Even the courts pass totally unrealistic expectations
Mhm.
we can't meet.
Mhm.
so
It's
from
a matter of courtesy at
it
this point,
is,
is
and it's
for your
a
decision.
practical perspective, we have been posting on the website, I don't know how long, a good while.
So
why
this
would we-
resolution would just designate it as the official site.
Exactly.
Correct.
And
So
that's-
does
and
that
that's
mean
a
any
law change.
posting we make out here is unofficial?
No, it's a courtesy.
It would be a courtesy posting.
Or
Okay,
an
but it's
emergency
still official.
posting. Or an
Yes.
emergency posting. If our internet goes down, we can still post on the kiosk and be legal.
I guess in my mind, the question comes up, okay, if the internet is your official posting and people are saying, okay, it has to be posted there, so that's the only place I'm looking, and you do have the case of the internet being down or the electricity being out, or at the courthouse, where it may not be out at somebody else's house, or they may have internet, and so they have the expectation
Sure.
that that's the official place. And then how do they know that in this case, I have to go look at the
Because it's in
physical
your
copy?
resolution. Because it's stated in your resolution.
But they don't know that the internet went down. They can come here, kind of thing. I mean, it gets, it's, for us, it becomes somewhat unworkable, although I realize people don't all drive down here to see what's on the board, practically speaking. But I'm a little bit of a foot dragger on being told that we have to accommodate technology that's not available to us.
Let me back up on that too, because it is available to us. It's our norm. When we want to get word out, we're talking about the boards and commissions. How do we get the word out? We put it on our website. It is our norm. And citizens are used to looking at that. There's going to be times when they can't. Because
We
of
just had the
that.
conversation about nobody sees it. Okay, so
Well,
no, they aren't used to it and no, they're not
That's
looking
a
at it.
different conversation that is on my list also.
That doesn't work.
And the other thing that I want to get our Facebook page up again, that's a really good thing. We can post it on the Facebook page. We can, I mean, I believe in posting it as many ways as you can, you know, considering the practicality of it, because you want your citizens to know what's going on. So.
And that is probably more important, but getting the word out is what's critical to our citizens. But it's also important to comply with the law. So
we're trying
that's
to do
where
it both.
Both, I understand, but complying with the law, I mean, I don't know if anybody's made the argument to the legislature on this particular issue. If CCI did or anybody, I don't know.
I'm sure they did. And I can tell you it falls on deaf ears because the metro area thinks everybody should be able to do it exactly the same way they do.
Well, sometimes you can
And they
word it in such a
assume
way
they
that they give you an out, but I mean, but I don't know what happened in that conversation.
We live in Colorado and we're ruled by the great state of Denver.
It's true. Don't get me started on mineral severance.
Well, anyhow, whatever, all I'm saying is I don't know how they got this put through. I don't know how hard and fast, because they have to the extent possible language in there. And I don't know, and I'm not saying we don't use that vehicle. I'm saying if we make it our official site, I'm gonna ask another question. What about for the treasurer when they post tax sale?
that's a different statute.
Oh,
That's the one that the governor vetoed.
So the one you're thinking of is anything that's required to be published in a legal notice in the newspaper was attempted a couple of different times legislatively to be web only posting, and that has died because
Yeah.
the newspaper association wants it to go into the newspapers.
Understandable.
And that's okay. But all of those things, like if you're publishing a RFP or a tax sale that is required to be a legal notice, that is still required to be a legal notice.
In the newspaper.
Mhm.
Okay.
Now, with that said, we're gonna post it on our website also as a courtesy.
The tax notices?
I would, but we haven't gotten there yet in conversation.
Well, I think we better get a website that's manageable before we start working.
That's why I say it's on there.
Now, I don't want to belabor this, but the question before us then, or the recommendation before us, is that we go ahead and designate as our official site with a courtesy posting in other locations, another location at least. You realize we just moved last year from posting inside the building to
Yes,
posting outside.
Yes.
Because before, if you wanted to see
Yes.
what we had, you had to come upstairs and look at the bulletin board. That was our official site. And so we went and spent money to stick that little kiosk thing
And
downstairs.
it's still a very valuable thing. It really is.
You didn't
And
waste your money.
it's, I don't know, you know, if you go ask 100 citizens on the street where they get their information about board commission meetings, it'd be interesting to see what they say.
Word of mouth.
Well, there you go. Can't make that our official posting method though.
Okay.
But that, you know, that's just one of in your list of resolutions that I'm hoping to get a little feedback on. Your appointments, I think, is good to go with the change of the name of social services, because all I did was reflect your current employees. Your treasurer's notice, the change there was that I removed individual persons' names. Sherry says, oh, that person that we did business with at this business retired, now we've got a new sales rep. Well, we don't want to list the sales rep. We want to list the banks that we do business with. So I've taken individual names out of there.
Okay. I'm trying to find where we are on all of that.
Your, I added your designated newspaper back in because last year there was no designated newspaper.
Yeah, we did.
There's Monte Vista Journal.
I voted on it.
I think I saw that somewhere. too.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It may have been done in
I
a
can't
separate
remember where I saw
resolution
it.
and it wasn't at your transition meeting.
I don't know.
I'm thinking it was
whatever.
at the transition meeting.
Anyway, it's now included with your notice, public notice posting.
And we
That was
need
all the
to
changes.
maybe discuss that at the next meeting. Anyhow.
You know, one recommendation I would have is that if the timing is such that you can't get it into a weekly, that you use the Valley Courier as a backup because they can get it in quicker if you have something that is real time critical.
However, then you come back to the issue of consistency, doesn't it? And so if you only use the Valley Courier for things that you don't have time for, does that run up against the citizens saying, well, I looked for it in the Monte Vista Journal, but it was, and I don't read the Alamosa
Sure.
Courier. And so you would end up having two papers that you would have to publish everything in,
No.
or something along that line.
Well,
I
we've
don't-
run into this anyhow. The part of the conversation we had before was the folks in South Fork started complaining because they don't get the Monte Vista paper. And so they wanted us to publish. Now, there's 4 papers in the county. They're all weekly. And it would put the cost up, it would quadruple the cost of publication. Canales County uses the Valley Courier. We stuck with Valley Publishing because they're our local entity. But, you
Can
know,
we negotiate a package deal?
I was just gonna suggest that,
Yeah.
that might be the smart thing
Because
to
it's
do.
regular income, they might be able
Yeah,
to
we might
budge
be able
on
to
the
go down
price.
and
I
negotiate.
think, you know all these people.
That'd really put us in. a
They don't like
position.
me, so.
Well, I think historically the issue has been, yeah, you negotiate a package deal, but it's still more expensive than just posting in one. And then you end up with a cost. And if you put all this stuff on the website anyway, and to any citizens who say, well, I don't get that paper, well, are you planning on driving to Monte Vista to get that paper? Or do you automatically get the South Fork paper, or are you driving to town to get that anyway? If it's on the website, and I think you have to have a happy medium.
We're not here to satisfy everybody. We're here to meet the requirements of the statute and make a reasonable effort
Isn't
to
that what I
see to it
just
that the
said?
public has knowledge.
Mhm.
And we can't, any of the commissioners, anybody else been getting the calls about COVID, we can't educate the whole world.
But regardless of what we state officially and legally, we're doing our best to get the word out in every way
Right.
we can. When you talk about newspapers, you can do a news release that is not a cost. You can do other things, website posting, getting the Facebook page active, all those things are all good things. In addition to what's.
Our attorney is here to tell us if there's anything there that would expose us to some liability.
Oh, we can have let me add that to my list for Nancy. I've got a list.
Make sure we aren't tripping any wires. You posted it here, you didn't post it there.
I think we'll be fine with those routine items as they are. You can certainly make changes if you
I
like.
didn't see anything that's struck out.
Your big decision will be your liaison appointments, and you can certainly fill in the blanks on that at your next meeting.
Okay, is there any more discussion
Yes.
on this item?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Speaking of meetings, the question was whether you want to meet on the 12th for your transition meeting and then on the 13th for your regular meeting, or combine your agendas all to be on the 12th.
Well, how much is going to be on the 13th?
At this point, I don't have a whole lot in the queue.
Historically, they've just been moved.
Has it?
Yes.
Because
There's really no point in having two meetings.
I feel bad making you guys come 2 days in a row.
Well, and really, there's no point.
well, unless we have some hot button issues out there
That need a longer
that
discussion.
need a longer meeting, because you start late because you got to do the swearing in on the 12th.
Mhm.
And then you come up here and you go through these beginning of the year resolutions that you've already prepared, so we have a chance to look at them ahead of time. And then after that, accounts payable, the normal consent agenda item things, pretty routine.
Yeah, and you'll have some regular business that will come in between now and then.
Oh, yeah,
that,
sure. And some irregular also, I'm sure. Well, for instance, if we've got anything that's, let's just say it's period 13 stuff that we have to deal with for some reason, that would show up on that date. The clerk's office doesn't care, do they?
Whether you're the 12th, I was just looking at the calendar, whether you're the 12th or the 13th.
There will be.
I don't
meeting
know,
on the
ask this
12th.
new clerk here.
Yeah. They will meet on the 12th because that's their transition meeting, and the question was whether they want a second meeting on the 13th,
Which-
simply because that's their regular meeting.
That would be the regular meeting.
And what time is that on the 12th?
We don't know yet. We're waiting to hear from the judge.
And do you want me there?
If it's a full-on regular meeting, yes, and if not, maybe only if you have input into those annual resolutions.
But if you have thoughts on those, you could know that ahead of
Sure,
time. couldn't you?
sure.
And see if there's any artists. I didn't see anything in there out of the ordinary to me.
I didn't see anything that raised any eyebrows, so. I just need to know so that I
So
don't
that you can
schedule
schedule your-
court
As
on
soon as
top
they
of
decide
something
whether
else.
to combine the meeting or not, we might know.
I'm already booked.
Well, do you want to combine that meeting?
I think we should just combine the meeting instead of doing back-to-back dates. I think makes more sense here one time.
It doesn't affect you, but you can still
We
vote on
set
it.
this, we set the
I
agenda
already said it.
accordingly.
I think it's pointless.
Okay,
Said just-
make a second, make a
Oh.
motion in a second. Let's get her done.
I did motion.
Motion,
Oh, okay, second. I'm sorry,
second,
missed it.
all in favor?
Aye.
One meeting.
I will reflect that in your resolution.
Okay.
Your other meetings for 2021, the only ones that came close to a holiday were November again, same as this year. Your Wednesday meeting is the day before Veterans Day and also the day before Thanksgiving. And for 2020,
you
you
just
chose
did
to shift them a day.
Although the day before Veterans Day, I wouldn't think would be an issue. Is when it was an issue was when it was on Veterans Day
Sure.
and the county was
Well, this
closed
year you
anyway.
moved it to the day after.
Right,
Because it was on,
because it was on.
but we don't have that issue
Right.
this
And
year.
for Thanksgiving, I think
Historically, that's been moved to
just
Tuesday.
to give you a little bit of space.
Yeah.
Before Thanksgiving Day.
Okay, but we also have been given the county holiday on Friday
Correct.
after Thanksgiving.
And that's reflected in your resolution. The
So all we
question is
do,
whether you want your commissioners meeting on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving or not. And it doesn't matter to me, it's your call.
as long as,
I know.
I guess that's in case any of
I
us
bet
have
y'all
any
thought you were
friends and family
traveling in
left that we can go
2020.
visit. huh? Yeah,
They haven't all passed away from COVID in the
that's
meantime.
right. Exactly. Or boredom.
You're gonna be taking a month off in December come 2020. Just for-
So, but that stuff we can take care of at that meeting. We just
Yes.
need to think about it. But the
Yes,
one thing we wanted to
exactly.
decide was the 12th.
Yes.
And
so
we've
that I
done
can
that.
get
Okay.
Yeah.
But the other stuff, just think about.
Think about it and be ready to make some decisions on the 12th.
Is there anything else on this? We've acted on the one thing she had on here.
You're back to your agenda on H.
H is discuss and direct staff towards transition and remaining task. How you guys doing?
How's my list going?
Yeah.
My thought, and I tell you this in my cover memo, Leslie does not need me to tell her how to be a county administrator. That's gonna be quick and easy, and I can help through with a little bit of current projects and employee engagements and things of that sort. So I think that's gonna go very smooth and very quickly. The bigger pieces is things that nobody in that office will ever have fully time to finish. And part of it is a records management issue. Every time an administrator leaves, they take their electronic records and dump them into a directory, and then it goes down the next layer, next layer, next layer. I have directories labeled past information that go down 4 times. And to clean up that network would be very helpful for anybody in here, not just the administrator, but the other administrative staff. And then we can know where to find things and get a structure in place and a system for managing that. The other piece that I feel like I started and didn't do a very full job of getting done is gathering all policies and getting them coordinated and fully implemented. So there's still some that are out there in draft form that we just finished up. There's some that have been adopted, but we haven't pushed them out to the organization and trained people on how to use them. So that piece would be, I hate to say pretty easy, but it would be a straightforward process that I could focus time on if I weren't doing everything else that I've been doing. So those 2 pieces are what I would recommend if you want to keep me around. If you want to say tomorrow's the 31st, you're done by, that's okay too.
Leslie? Administrator,
Yes.
give us your thoughts.
Well, I think this stuff needs to be done. There's a lot of confusion and inconsistency between the departments on how they handle things. And I have been made aware that one department made a large expenditure without consulting, a non-elected department. The elected departments don't, unless if it's in their budget. anyway, we can get into that later. I just think we need some very consistent policies so people know exactly what's expected of them across the board, through the departments. And it's, I mean, from an HR standpoint, it's essential because we have no way to enforce things like what the chain of command is and all that, and how you do things and all that stuff if we don't have those policies. So it's really essential. And then the records are a mess. And I will tell you that the issue with both of those is if we pay to have them done now, we will save ourselves tons of money later.
And stress.
Yeah, because I mean, when I found out that the original resolutions are scattered throughout the county, and if I want to find one, I'm going to have to figure out where it was. That's not a good thing. Those all need to be in the admin office. People can make copies to their heart's content, but we've got to have them all in one place because they were made for a reason. You know, they're made to direct my decisions and everybody else's decisions. And if I don't know where they are, so we've got those things we really have to clean up. And I can tell you from the other issues, I'm going to be busy doing other things, and Judy's better at it anyway. So
Just wonder where that was gonna come in.
Well, she's already doing the things that she's better at, and I'm so happy to hand those things off to her. So.
Well, it's unfortunate that stuff that is so obvious was so opaque to people. This stuff is just blatantly obvious. But how does this work out when we're talking timing and actual, okay, these are the duties, this is what we're asking you to do?
And really, that's where I wanted your direction, partly because you're spending money by keeping me on. And we want to make the best use of that and not do that unnecessarily. The concept of clean up your foundation and then it's easier to build. And any new person, I am often a new person. I've worked for 40 different entities in 6 years. So I've stepped in as a new person 40 times. And every time the first thing I look to is what's the statutory, local code, regulation, policy. And if you can't find those things for guidance, you're kind of floundering. And the statute, thankfully, is easy to find. But when you get down to the policy level, not so much. And even the policies that are in existence and well-written and ready to roll are sitting there not doing anything. So the other parts of the county that should be using those policies are saying, well, we don't have a policy on that. Nobody's told them. So there's an implementation piece of that needs to happen also.
So, I mean, you've talked about two things. One is kind of about cleaning up the policy, but you also were talking about records and things of that nature.
What I would recommend is to kind of do a quick reorganization of the electronic records, and then the hard copy are not as voluminous and they're not as needed on a daily basis. It's more the electronic records that you go to look for things and need to find them. And archival, historic, like the resolutions you mentioned, yes, they're in the clerk's office. The clerk has recorded every single one of our resolutions. So they are in one place in that sense. But if you say, last year we passed a resolution for something, then you're stuck going back to the clerk or back to the minutes, which thankfully they're in the minutes, and sifting through that way. But if you say, do we have a resolution about this particular subject? That's where it becomes hard because there's no way to search that out.
And for 2020, there was a spot on the website where all of the resolutions went until Trish left.
And I saw that, and
I thought that was really a good idea.
It is a good idea. It needs a little redesign, but it's great to get back to that. But again, that search function did not work at all when I tried it. It goes to a dead end, which is a website issue. But we internally shouldn't be having to go to our website to search for public documents. We should be able to say, yeah, here's our file of resolutions. Let's just go get it. So those are, they sound simple and they're simple in concept, but to gather it and make it happen is one thing. So there's several phases when I look at the entirety of records management. You've got, how do you function with your daily needs, getting your hands on what you need right away when you need it. And that's the time critical thing. The longer picture is how are we internally managing our records? And if Bobby has a document, what is she doing with it? And how do I know what she's doing with it? So that type of communication needs to happen, and a type of, contracts are always a challenge everywhere. Did it get signed by everybody? Did the original come back to who it needed to go to? Did it get recorded if it needs recorded? And then where is it living? And is it living in hard copy? Is it living electronically? All those decision points we need to find in a plan. And that's a longer process, and it's a big process.
I guess my concern about having you do the records organization is everybody organizes differently.
Exactly.
That's why we're trying to stop it.
Exactly.
And so, but that's kind of my concern is, are you going to come in, organize all the records according to you?
No.
And then Leslie can't find something, so she changes how that's organized.
When you have a plan, when you have a written, documented plan, then everybody follows that plan. Now, to get to that plan, it means going out to all the other users and saying, what do you use and how? And I don't want to change anything that's working for somebody. I'm not going to go say, we're just going to restructure this for the sake of restructuring it. But to go through and say, when you make a draft document, have the word draft in the name. If it's approved, put the approved date on the document in the filing. Those kind of standards that everybody can do.
Well, just
and
nomenclature,
not.
date specific. And the biggest challenge I've seen in the county is the Google Drive. Because everybody
I'm
uses it
sorry.
like their own
I
private
am
little deal.
very
And it
concerned
has
about
cost us so much trying to go through and figure that stuff out.
And it's
I
not
want-
secure.
Huh?
It's
not
not
secure.
secure. It really, when I saw that, I thought, oh my
Oh.
goodness, there's stuff going up here that should not be going out to the public. And anybody could decide to share it with anybody.
So all of those things are part of what you define in your plan and how you manage that. So I, as a user and use a Google Drive, my practices need to be the same as somebody else who uses a Google Drive in our standards. So that's a big project with a long-term end deliverable on that. How much of that you want me to do is kind of up to you. I can chip in and get a game plan and a roadmap for somebody else to carry out down the road, or I can continue to do it hands-on. I can do some hands-on, walk away with giving people homework and come back and then say, did you do your homework, and follow through that way. It's all, anything you do is going to be an improvement. The immediate, get those old legacy files organized and together is kind of a critical thing.
Right now, other than becoming familiar with the county and personnel and departments, there's no training on the admin side to speak of. It's like,
I don't know, both
familiar.
of us can't figure out how to use the phone yet. So.
well, that's,
There is that.
okay, well, that's
You
technical.
have to pick it up.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's
I'll
not
come give
working
you,
though.
I'll come give you crash course.
But then
Those are truly the type
some of this,
things really-
we've got a lot of stuff that are loose ends. One of the challenges we've had in the time I've been here, I've noticed, is something will come up. Yep, we're going to do something with it, and then it fades into oblivion, and then it's laying out there, and when it resurfaces, we all go to our collective and very faulty memories to try to remember what we did.
Well, this, and then my plan is that we will have a directors meeting, staff management meeting at 9 o'clock the next day after the board meeting, and we will talk about what you want done.
Okay, so those
And
are
I will follow up.
management type
Mhm.
procedures, which will go a long ways towards getting us where we need to be. But
And some of
between the two of you, I think you're gonna have to, one, tell us what it is you see as critical needs to be done. You've done a bit of that right now. What's it gonna take in terms of time commitment and the skill set? And three, give us an estimate of what it's gonna cost us going forward, because we obviously didn't build that into the budget for 2021. But I agree, personally, I agree with you, Leslie, that it's money well spent and it will save us a tremendous amount longer. And I could digress into all sorts of examples, but I've seen it happen in communities so many times where they lost, in today's money, hundreds if not millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands if not millions of dollars, because they didn't keep track of things. And their franchise ordinance got lost. And they weren't collecting their taxes and stuff like that. And we've got situations like that in this county where we're not collecting and things of that nature. And so I'm concerned about that. And no, I'm trying to figure out how to bring this. We got items on here and it's noon. We got a 1:30 public hearing. But anyhow, without dragging that on, I don't know how we can come up to a decision today other than to say,
Let me
figure it out.
suggest that I crank through the policies. I think that's gonna be a fairly quick thing to do. But before that, it's more critical that I hit the network files so that we can make sure we've gathered all of those things. So I'll do a quick organization and search on, and when I say network, I'm talking about our admin team up here, not the entire county, just our admin team up here. Do a search on that, crank out the policies, and then I'll be able to come back to you and tell you better what the records piece is going to take.
so we could defer decision on this other than to say, you guys
I just
figure out a working
don't want to
relationship.
be continuing my contract without your okay.
What we talked about is that Judy's gonna start on this, and as she gets into it, she's gonna better know how much time it would take to do a more in-depth work, and then we'll come back to you. And then at your next meeting, I will have a list of what I'm gonna call my preliminary priorities would be. But I'm also gonna ask you to set a date for a goal setting session for this year, so that the department heads would come to, so we can all get on the same page what your interest in us doing is over the next year.
And we do a goal save. You look at our management plan or whatever they call it,
Governance agreement.
We'll have goals that we kind of just pulled out of the air. Some of them, but there's a list, and the goals probably need to be accomplished, but it may.
Yeah, usually what I do is I'll meet with the department heads, and I'm talking about non-electeds, ahead of time, and kind of get where they're at for this year, so that you'll get a packet of that, but we need your stamp of approval on what we're doing, because you direct us.
So in terms of what we're going to do right now on this subject, Judy, your contract, what did it talk about in terms of transition?
So the contract was for interim administrator, but it also was softly written enough to cover a transition. So that's really my question to you is, what does the transition look like? Is the transition, Leslie's here, she's capable, I can walk away, or is the transition, let's chip away at some of these foundational issues?
And Leslie, your thoughts on that? You'd like to see the transition chipping away?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think we have to deal with this policy and records issue, and I am not going to have time.
Okay, so your recommendation is that
there's a lot of other stuff that needs to be
the
done.
contract does not end tomorrow then?
That's the clarification I wanted from you as a group.
Okay. Yeah, not from me.
Wait a minute, that was just one.
That was one person.
Just me. I'm just trying to articulate what it is we're trying to accomplish here.
And I guess, did I hear earlier that your concern is that there was nothing budgeted for you beyond December 31st? And that was your concern?
That is one piece of your decision. So there's a very minimal amount in your 2021 budget for professional services in general. But you can deal with that through a budget amendment, but just know going in that whatever you commit to and keeping me on is gonna
It's gonna cost
probably
us.
necessitate a budget amendment.
So at a minimum, we're not gonna do anything different before our
Okay,
first meeting
For
in
the first meeting.
January.
All right,
By then, you'll be able to kind of give us
Yeah.
an estimate of what we're looking at and some
Yeah.
options.
Yeah, have more information.
Well, you should be pretty well finished by then, shouldn't you? with
I might be finished tomorrow, I don't
It's
know.
a small county.
She's
Okay.
amazing.
So I would take a motion that we, if I can state this, and you guys correct me, I'm just trying to move it along here.
Sure.
That Judy will continue on, that we will revisit this on the 12th. She will assist in areas as determined between the two of them under, basically you'll be working under Leslie at this point.
Yes.
To do as needed, these priorities, which you clearly identified. And we'll revisit on the 12th about next steps after that.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
That works for me.
Do we have a motion that reflects that?
Someone,
Okay, we've got a motion. I'm gonna give it to Suzanne.
whatever.
So second.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Done. Are you comfortable? Does that give you guidance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right, we've got draft IGA for the Homeland Security. This is important because there's some grants that we have to be in position to apply for, is that right? Or not we, but the group?
Okay, this is on the Homeland Security Grant Program. This is, we are the fiscal agent. Here's another one of those programs where the committees associated with them are not legal entities. They are just there in order to fulfill the requirements of the grant. On the Homeland Security Grant, there is All Hazards Advisory Committee, and there's also a board of directors. The All Hazards Advisory Committee is the one that just comes together, and this fulfills the requirements of the grant. They talk about hazards, they talk about, it comes down to threats and how we are equipped to handle them. The advisory board doesn't make any decisions at all. All of the decisions are through the board of directors. The board of directors is made up of one commissioner from each county and the chairman from the All Hazards Advisory Board. Okay, that entity, their job is to make determination of who those grants go to and go through the grant applications. After a lot of time spent with the state Office of Grants Management and their attorneys, it was decided that we needed to have IGAs or intergovernmental agreements with each with the counties that are participating to eliminate. We did have one situation that there was a grant given to a county for radios, but whenever that got through, they didn't have the proper FCC licensing to use those radios. Well, it caused a problem for us because we had to pay for those radios, but until they had that proper FCC licensing done, that we were basically out the money because we couldn't get reimbursement on them through the grant, and they couldn't take possession of those radios because they didn't have the licensing. We couldn't, because it was given to that county, they couldn't go to any other county, so we were left holding the bill. The IGA covers situations like that, so we aren't left holding the bill on any of those things. We already approved the IGA with counties and have sent them out to the counties in order to sign. If those counties don't sign those IGAs, then they're not eligible for grant receipts. And those counties also are not eligible to be on the board of directors that makes the decision on who the grants go to, because if you haven't signed the IGA, you apparently aren't in agreement with how this is handled. Okay, what we have today is an IGA for the entities, which would be if a fire department requested a grant. We need an IGA with that fire department to say that they will follow all the rules. There's quite a few.
I marked it up and sent my comments back. And
Yes, there's quite a few rules because it is a grant and because it does have federal funding. And so there's a lot of rules that everybody has to follow. The IGA just says that they're going to follow those rules. In addition, well, there's basically kind of 2 or 3 items on here. Do we want to vote on each one separately? Because there's the IGA and then there's the procedures.
Well, I have some questions. The reason I asked Nancy about this is I've had several phone calls this week about from different counties that are not interested in signing this for different reasons. And it brought a question in my mind, why are we going to run this through and sign on our end if we don't have everybody on board with this type thing? You know, who all was doing it? I mean, I've had questions about who was put in charge to write the thing up and go after the grant and do all the stuff, clear down to we're not signing it. We're suggesting no county sign it. And
Okay.
so
We're fiscal agent for this grant, right?
Yes.
yeah, my only other comment, which I don't think I did send you, was I don't know that we need to call it an IGA. It could be an MOU.
Would that be better?
I think it would be less intimidating for the counties to understand that they'd be participating in grant distribution as opposed to locked into a specific agreement between counties and the state that says they will do.
Okay.
An MOU allows for may, and the IGA is will, shall.
Okay, so in that case, would you change the title of it?
Yep.
Or would there be any other changes within the document?
Well, there are a couple of other things that I would change if we're going to make it an MOU instead. And so I'd like to get back to you on that.
Well, I would like to get this done today since this is my last meeting. And basically, I've worked on this for 4 years in order to get this straightened up where we would be following the guidelines, suggestions, and procedures recommended by the state.
I don't think there's not a lot of changes in terms of procedurally. I'd like to know what comments you had gotten back that were causing them to not want to sign it, except that particular IGA is will and MOU is may.
I think that was a lot of it. I think that was the biggest part of it, honestly, too. But there was questions about this was done. I'm not harping at you, Suzanne, so don't take this wrong. It was done, and it wasn't done through the proper people and should have been involved in the process. And some of the counties took offense at having this presented to them the way they did. And then, like I said, it could be just strictly the IGA. I don't know, but.
And so basically the comment is that they felt like that everybody should have their say in how it was done, as opposed to doing it according to what the state and the granting agencies require, which is kind of problematic, is that everybody can't have their fingers in the pie, that you have to follow the rules and do it according to the rules. And I think part of the reason that we have gotten into this position is because there have been people who've been involved who want to change the rules where and this goes back to that whole bylaw issue where you have everybody who participates feeling like they need to have a hand in writing and rewriting the bylaws, and those bylaws are the governing documents. And so everybody feels like they have a lot of authority where whenever it comes down to it, Rio Grande County is the one on the hook for the money. And we don't want to have other counties making decisions that could cost us a lot of money.
It seems to me that this,
That's the perspective I took when she asked me to review it,
sure,
is
keeps out of trouble.
how do we keep Rio Grande in control of
Exactly.
the basic funding and the behaviors under the grants that Rio Grande has to follow? Rio Grande has to follow the specific rules that the grant is drafted for.
I have no problem with the document. I have no problem with what it stands for or how it's to be used. What I have a problem with is when I have other commissioners call me and talk to me about, hey, don't sign this because it doesn't look like it's complete. And that's why I was asked the question, why I asked you first,
Okay.
if you'd seen it, and you said you hadn't
Yes.
redacted or whatever. And Suzanne, I know, has been working on this forever, so that's why my questions came up. But
There's not a, as I understand it, there's some grants that we're eligible to apply for in the near future. And we have to have something in place before we do that.
It's all among the Homeland Security grant.
Right.
And every year there is a notice of funding opportunities that comes out that says, okay, this is the amount of money you're going to have this year. It's all under the same grant. It's not different grants being poured into it.
Right.
And every year they change the qualifications. And so
this year, maybe this, next year, something else.
correct. As an example, for many years, a lot of these grants were given to police departments, fire departments, ambulances for radios for communication. Last year, I think we did our grants analysis like mid-March, or that we had to have our recommendations for which applicants got the grants in March. The notice of funding opportunities, or NOFO, came out, I want to say the last of February, 1st of March. So we had like 2 weeks notice. And so we had to determine within the grant applications that we had what was approvable. And it went from radios to terrorism-centric security items, which focused on airports, which is a huge switch in how it works. The situation is, and we had an audit based on this grant last year. I want to say, was it last spring, I believe? And these are some of the items they came up with in that audit, was that it wasn't being that it could more correctly be handled if all of this stuff was corrected. And that if we went from having bylaws to having procedures, that it would be more clear. Along that line, I also have the procedures that were written up that I sent out this morning. And so, but basically all of this is done based on the recommendations of the federal audit and the state Department of Grants Management.
So to clarify the two questions I have, how many counties have signed off on this so far?
3,
Southern counties.
Castilla, Alamosa, Conejos.
Yep, Southern counties. Okay, the other question is, the other question that came to me was, who authorized you to do this?
I'm the representative to the Homeland Security grant from the fiscal agent.
How would you ordinarily do this? I mean, is there a process? Who would spearhead something like this?
Who's the fiscal agent for the grant?
Rio Grande County.
then it would be up to you as the Board of County Commissioners to create that policy and determine how people are going to play. And that's what Suzanne was doing here with this. This basically outlines the rules that people are going to play by in order to accept these grants and accept Rio Grande as the fiscal agent. That's what this is about. And so I would retitle it to a memorandum of understanding as opposed to an intergovernmental agreement. Because it's not, if you're looking to be able to hand out funds to fire departments, police departments, dispatchers, different entities, they're responsible to their own counties. And so it's the Board of County Commissioners that they're responsible to. They're going to have to be willing to sign this, the other commissioners.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason that we have two separate IGAs is we have one for the counties and we have one for the entities.
Okay.
And so within that, how it's set up is that
I think for the county, an IGA is appropriate, but for the
Right.
individual entities within that, it would be a memorandum of understanding. They're going to
Okay.
play by the same rules.
okay,
And one more concern I'm gonna add is that these are federal funds. And if you are the grantee, you're responsible how the subrecipients spend them.
yes.
Yes.
And you are the one that's on the line if they spend them improperly.
Yeah, all my questions had nothing to do with the legalities of the direction of funds or anything else. It all had to do with the way this was presented to me through these questions I asked was it hadn't been, it was done this way and it should have been done this way. Suzanne answered that by saying, you know, not everybody can be involved in it. It's obviously got to be one or two people or whatever, but so that's the questions was thrown at me, so I thought I'd ask.
So if you say 3 counties have basically agreed to this,
Have signed off on the IGAs, yes.
this IGA,
This is for the entities. We already approved the county IGAs a couple months ago.
so the county IGAs are done with 3 signatories, including us, or count in addition to us.
In addition to us.
So
Well,
4,
we don't have to sign it because it's with us.
okay, so we've
So
got 4
4
counties on
counties,
board.
4 out of 6.
2 of them are not. So that takes care of that. This is for entities.
Yes,
Okay, entities being the fire department or somebody
Correct.
else.
And that's why we're going to change the title
To MOU.
to an MOU.
So for the county commissioners that are concerned, this really isn't their question anymore then, is it?
Those that have already signed as the IGA, county to county, it's not a
It's
question.
not
for
a
them.
question in.
It's a question
So
for
we've
the
got 2
entities.
counties apparently that have not signed, in which case all they're saying is we're not going to sign perhaps because, and that means they're not eligible for funding.
That would be correct.
I'd stop there for me.
Change the title.
okay. Can we do a motion to approve with the title change that Nancy's going to do?
And correct the language in here.
And to
There was a couple of other
change
things
it
she said she would
into an MOU as
I
opposed
need
to
an
being.
electronic file because what I
Yes.
sent you back were my comments so that
Yes.
whoever had the electronic file could change it.
I will send you one of those.
Okay.
So how do we act on this today, or if not, when?
Do you need time to fix it, or can you list those?
I
in
think
the
that
motion?
you can list the changes suggested in the motion and vote on the motion.
Okay, the one that was.
I'm in trial at 1:30, so I'm not drafting
Right.
anything today.
The one that was in the packet was the one that you sent with corrections added. I will go ahead and send that back to you in electronic format. Would that be appropriate?
Yes,
And would it be appropriate to have a motion to accept that with those changes?
yes,
Okay,
legally, yes.
Okay, I guess legal is what we're talking about. Somebody make a motion.
Gene, do you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I just thought you would, since you
Well, I
Author
thought
of
maybe since I was the one that delivered it all, that it would
No,
be
you
more
guys quit doing the
appropriate. Whatever.
dance. Somebody make a
Okay.
motion in a second.
I moved or
He
you made the
moved.
motion, I'll second.
Second, motion is second that we approve this form, which is going to be called an MOU
Yes.
for entities under the Homeland Security Grant with the revisions that have been discussed. They will be incorporated. That's the motion in the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Carries.
Okay, also connected to that are the procedures that I also handed out.
Is that, well,
Yes,
We've got hard copies.
Right here, we got 'em.
An MOU instead of the IG, I can get it done tomorrow, so it's done, this year.
okay.
But I can't do it this afternoon.
I think that's okay, as long as it was passed.
it was passed and I can sign it.
And so
as of
I think it's
effective
okay.
today.
Good.
Okay, these procedures. Okay,
Okay. Do we need a separate motion on the procedures that go along with the IGA?
well, if they were not included, I guess so. I haven't had a chance to really
Okay,
read them, but they look to me like they're somewhat boilerplate, are they?
Pretty
Which
much.
that's-
They are.
It's not,
I
that
will,
is a bad way to make a decision. But okay.
I will move that we also approve the procedures that go along with the IGA.
Got a motion
second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You're giving me the stink eye over there.
I'm not.
It's hard to see over the mask.
I can tell a glare when I see it. Okay. All right. So those two items are taken care of. The next item is discussion. It's discussion regarding posting meeting recordings. I'm assuming what we're talking about here is that the county would post the recorded video recordings on some format.
Suzanne brought this up and I didn't have, it came at the last
Yes.
minute and I didn't have a chance to even get more information, so.
Okay, on that is, I believe it would be appropriate for the county to be the one to put the Zoom recordings on YouTube. Currently, it's being done by a private individual. And I don't think, and the public has come to rely on, you, whenever you look back, some of those meetings have 400 views. And I have heard comments from many people who have jobs where they could never come to a commissioner's meeting and that they truly, truly appreciate having them on YouTube. But I don't think it's proper or fair for the county to rely on a private individual to do that for us. And partly that an individual doesn't, that they may not always be available at the time of the meetings. And so not all of the meetings would be on there. There could be some concern that maybe it's not being handled correctly. And I think if the county were the one that was doing it, that we would be able to ensure that everything was done correctly and that everything is on there. And I did some research on that and it cost nothing to put them on YouTube, that there is no cost. And then there is an open source, it's called OBS is the program that you can use, and it's an open source program. It's a free program that you can use to live stream it to YouTube. And I have more information about that if anybody wants to know about that. But I think that would be an appropriate action for the county to take.
I don't know. I have to have a makeup artist.
It's
Not in the
It's
budget.
definitely something that's been on my radar to look at moving forward. It is a good idea, and it is, if we want to ensure that every meeting is there, we do want to take responsibility for it, and that's part of your point. It's a bigger, an another big project. It's not as easy as getting open source software and live streaming. I've been down this road in a lot of other places, and you can do it cheap. You can. It takes staff resources and staff time. So that's the commitment. But I think it is worth talking about. It's a good purpose.
And I think it's extremely valuable. And the number of people that have, well, whenever you have 400 views, you think you'd never have that many people.
No, 300 of them were one person.
Well, that was a lot of time, but that's also the beauty of it. And I have talked to several people who people, I guess you have kind of an idea in your brain of who is interested in commissioner proceedings. And some of the people that have told me they've watched the meetings and that they do it every meeting after they get home from work, they sit down and watch the meetings. And I thought, those are not people that I would have really picked out to say that they would do that. And so I don't think we know who would watch, but I think it's back to transparency. And I think it's important.
No, transparency covers a lot of things, but I find that the people that watch the meetings then go to the computer and write a nasty letter to the commissioners or letter to the editor. No, it's just, it's fine. If it doesn't take time and effort, anybody,
It will take time and effort, but I think it is important, and it's worth keeping on our collective radar as we make a plan to move forward. But it's not going to happen next week. But
And I would make the motion that we direct staff to accomplish this.
And I also have to say that watching those YouTube past meetings was one of the things that helped me decide that I would like to work for the county, because I had a favorable impression of your meetings and how you work together.
Oh,
But you
We have to
cannot
make a
create
promise.
that with everybody. It's just part of the job.
Can I just say that Justin Radscliffe is posting?
oh, he's got something on the chat.
I can't read it from here.
Look.
It's gone.
I need to excuse myself because, as I said, I'm in trial at 1:30 and I've got to go get ready for that.
He's just offering to help us.
Thank you.
Who's that?
Justin.
Justin, okay.
Yes.
Well, if we're we make a decision on this, I don't want to direct them to accomplish it, or at least ask them to tell us what it's going to take.
Yeah.
But the other thing is airport lease, and I didn't know if we needed to talk about that before Nancy got out of the room.
It's a very, apparently a very straightforward airport lease that came in this morning. And this is what we were talking about adding to the agenda.
And that's on the new form?
This is on
It's on the new
I
lease
believe
form?
so.
You don't know?
Let me look. I haven't really, yes, it is.
Anyway,
Well,
back
then
to
you-
the other, I
you
think.
should
we
be
need
good to go.
I think we need to direct them to take a look at it, find out what else will be involved in it. I'm not opposed to it, by no
Are you
means.
gonna
I
have
think
time
it's a
to
good
get
idea.
together?
Her motion was to direct. We hadn't have a second
Have a
for it.
little
You want to
time
modify
tomorrow?
the motion in a second.
And
I think
then
it's the-
I
what did
certainly
you
have
say?
time
To
next
direct,
week.
to direct the administrative staff
I got a
to
couple of
figure out how to do it and
Okay.
You said
I
accomplish it
had
at the
more
end or
time
something.
tomorrow,
I think we ought
except
to take it,
yesterday I
accomplish
got
it now.
informed
Let them
that
figure
I'm
out what it's
in a
gonna take.
sheltered hearing
Right.
If we got
and
manpower, and if it does, I'm fine
nails
with
at
doing
nine.
it.
So would
So
you modify your
how
motion
about
to have them look into it and come up with a proposal on how to do it?
10:30?
Would that work?
Will that work for you?
Okay.
Second, yeah.
Got a
Okay.
second. Motion is second. You guys missed all
Did you
this.
get
You
all
probably
that?
missed it over there.
Okay,
Okay. It
okay.
is to look into it and come up with a proposal.
And from my perspective, I will say that will not happen in next week or two.
Is this an attempt to extend the transition period?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's an attempt to dump it on her. Is what it is.
I will.
All right.
10:30 then tomorrow.
We're down to the airport lease. If we can get this done,
We are down to the airport lease. It is on the new lease form. It is between Arlington Stormore LLC is the person or.
Is
the
this an
entity.
assumption or is this new
No,
construction?
this is new construction. It is the 1.5 lots that's beside Price. You know, we took the 3 lots, turned and cut them in half. This is that other 1.5 lot.
The issue that may come up on this is on the Price lot, we extended the lot line back into the easement setback. Are we gonna need to do that here? And when we did that, we've come up with two prices on lots, $600 a year and $900 a year. The assumption, which is gonna bite us, is it's either a standard size lot or it's a lot and a half. That does not reflect the map. It's not the reality on the ground. And I was hoping we could have done a square foot for the dirt rent. That way, no matter what size the lot was, we knew it was gonna, if they extended it to a lot and 3/4 or something. But right now, there's only two lease prices on there.
And so this one falls under
The lot and a half, 900.
the lot
bucks
and a
year.
half.
But no extensions into the alley, right?
That dollar amount, you
Earl
mean?
worked with him
The dollar amount
yesterday
doesn't
on
allow
getting
for
this
extensions
together.
between.
Well, I would say it should be a square foot basis. But that wasn't incorporated. in
Yeah, we
somebody's
didn't
policy.
define that when we laid out our packet. So the way this particular one was anticipated to be a $900.
And it's a lot and a half, which is, that, but we jumped through the hoops because they kept changing hangar sizes out there
Okay.
and setback requirements.
There is a correction that I would like to have on here, is it says to have and hold said tract for an initial period of 1 year from 12/29/20 through 12/29/45, and that should not be 45 if that's the portion for 1 year under the construction portion. So that was filled out but then it also says $900 per year for an additional 25-year term of lease. And so
That's
that-
not correct either.
Who-
1 year
that's
plus an
added-
additional
that's
25.
Handwritten added language? to
No,
the
that
lease?
was-
this is a check on the
That was
lease.
form that Ryan developed.
But the date that is, the date that is on the new construction was handwritten. And I think
I
it
don't
needs to
like
be,
it when people handwrite stuff into leases. That's
well,
not.
no, all that was written was the date. I was just reading the
Okay.
lease
So-
terminology
so
in
no-
addition.
No terms were changed.
No, it's just that date was in there
There's
incorrectly.
some ambiguity in the terminology. 1 year and then an additional 25 years.
Except
I saw
that
that
1
too.
year,
Yeah.
that 1 year is for the construction
Doesn't matter,
portion.
you get 25 years.
I have got to get Ryan to send me he hasn't sent me the files yet, the airport leases. He hasn't sent them to me. I mean, we sat and we discussed them and I reviewed it with him and he said this was a done deal, so.
So Nancy, let me get you the packet that they approved last meeting. That includes like a overview, the lease form and the operating
But if
procedures.
the lease form has
I have that.
contradictory language
Okay.
in it,
And then, do you have an actual electronic copy of the lease itself?
Yes.
The new lease?
Yes.
Send me that too.
okay. So action on
approve
this, huh?
Don't approve that unless you're able to square away the ambiguity on that term,
Fair enough.
Okay,
okay?
And we need to talk about this.
Okay, well, I'm
Not
coming,
now.
I'm coming to see Leslie at 10:30 Tomorrow.
On a given day. Oh, okay.
tomorrow. We can make arrangements.
Maybe we
then.
can do that.
What do we
something.
need? We need about an hour?
I like
Tomorrow?
your square foot proposal. That makes more sense.
Thank you.
Fairer.
I
And
think
so
so.
we, did we get Formation Ag squared away? Did they
Yes.
sign it?
Oh, you guys need copies of this.
I do,
What do you mean, did they sign it?
I do.
Look at
I-
the signature on there. He just-
Good. Now, this will give you an idea. I like to keep it simple. Make your statement, say what
Get her
you're
done.
about, say what you're willing to do, and sign the damn thing.
And then do it.
There you go.
You don't need 18 pages for your
I'm with
agreement.
you.
Okay.
Need to go to Judy then.
That needs to go to Judy and them.
It's very much akin to like if you're paying for someone to relocate to come work for you, same sort of thing.
Mhm.
You're paying them to stay here.
All right,
You're not gonna stay here, pay it back.
There you
that's
go.
right. Simple as that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I really appreciate it. Good luck in your,
It's
Other
a
job.
termination of parental rights. It's not.
Oh,
much
that's
fun.
not fun.
oh,
All right.
Although I've got a couple of kids that I might throw in that bucket.
You want some of my 10?
So you want to get rid of some of your kids? Is that what you're
Actually, I
saying?
like mine. I'll keep mine.
No, mine are grown up now. I just got a picture for Christmas of one of them and I go, crap, he's an old man.
How does that happen? I don't,
Yeah.
I
I
still
don't
don't
know. I
understand.
don't know. It's just freaking nature. Okay, let's see. Is there any other business before us?
Can't imagine.
We got a 1:30 public hearing. which
Almost
is
an hour.
Yeah, not quite. If there's nothing else,
So moved.
Judy, you're acting like you have something.
Really, really quick.
Uh,
We've been talking about how to streamline public hearing times. We already have had the conversation about we can give notice at one
Mhm.
time and do them sequentially.
Mhm.
My question to you is, are you agreeable to putting them at some point other in your day?
yes.
If we did them at the beginning of the meeting, you could just go till you're done.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to go and come.
No,
back.
no, let's, please.
Okay, done. Told you it was quick.
That
Yeah,
sounds
'cause
unanimous.
And now we're gonna be stuck here
Okay.
till 1:30 and I have no place to go
Exactly.
because nobody will give me an office.
You see where my desk is?
I know, you took
And
my
the
spot.
chair?
yeah, they moved your desk out there because they're eating lunch.
I know.
Okay, so we're adjourned. Fair
So
enough.
moved.
Recess.
Looks like the-
Shut us
we're
down.
So I'm
please.
gonna pause the